Hey everybody, how's it going? We are here, and it is Monday. That's right. Who do we got here? Davy Frost, Bibu Zuzu, Equo26, Faye Liverin, some other people, Denise Particle Hegelian, and I don't know how to say this one. Cork Smile. Hi. Okay. It is me. We kind of threw it out there. It was a little spontaneous last episode about listener prayers getting played here at the beginning of the show, in the pre-show here. I don't think we actually had any come in. We're not seeing any come in, so we will not start doing that today. But I think it's kind of a fun idea if y'all head on over to canarycrynewstalk.com. And then you'll see the green tab on the bottom or the right-hand side. Click on that, and you can send a 90-second message. And when you do that, you of course, we always have the speak pipe section of the show. Or, if you want to do a prayer, we'll play it here at the pre-show. I think that's a fun idea. So keep that in mind, everybody. And if you got a couple extra seconds, you can go ahead, head on over to canarycrynewstalk.com and leave us a message, leave a prayer to be played in the pre-show. I think that's a very fun idea. So give it a try. We'll try that next time. Other than that, just about to get the show started here. I'm sending out the email, nope, not the email. What am I sending out? Sending out the text. The text should already be out. Okay, you should have that. You should have the text. I don't feel my phone buzzing, which is concerning, but hopefully that went through. Other than that, folks, there is still time to produce the show. We all know that this is a difficult time in human economic history, especially with some of the news going on over the weekend with the Silicon Valley Bank issue, a couple other banks having issues. Banks having issues is a spooky thing for everybody. And you know what? We can see that reflected in producership, which is totally understandable. But if there's somebody out there who is not so afraid of the economic banking collapse, and you're feeling comfortable and you get value from the show, consider producing the show. That would be wonderful. Head on over to canarycry.support to do that, and you'll be on the list for this episode. Other than that, Gons, I think we are ready to start the show.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is March 13th, 2023. We are live to tape on episode 601. And today, Joe PONZI. And signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy Basil.
And my name is Gons of the no longer operational Face Like the Sun YouTube channel, director of the Age of Deceit films, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, aka the Cabana Boy, live to tape from California. Here to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events and today's immersion phenomena. Proverbs, blah, blah, blah. Proverbs 22:7.
Oh, I thought you were doing like a Joe Biden thing.
I think I'm honest. I've been watching too much Joe, and it's bringing me to have issues talking. Proverbs 22:7.
Proverbs, blah, 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 blah.
The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender.
Yeah. Ain't it the truth?
Ain't that the truth?
Ain't it the truth? Yeah. Well, it was also the Oscars over the weekend.
Oh, right. Has it been a year since the slap? The Will Smith face slap?
I guess in theory, yes.
Gosh, that is quick. That is a quick year.
The slap. Yeah, that was fast. I didn't even think about that. Interesting. Okay. Well, we are happy to announce that we will not be talking about the Oscars. No slaps, no culture bending surprises this time, or if there was, it was quickly outshone by the collapse of the American banking system.
The banks collapsing maybe got people's attentions more than Jimmy Kimmel doing some rant about something. I don't know. What a dying thing. The Grammys.
Not exciting enough to distract from the collapse of society altogether. I will say props to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, did it win some stuff?
Yes, it won a lot of things, including Best Picture.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so this was the one that I was talking about that I saw in theaters, enjoyed it very much, and googly eyes were like one of the main motifs of the entire film. Started freaking me out a little bit. Maybe that like a Basil from another dimension was trying to send some sort of message with the sudden sort of popularity of the iconography of the googly eyes.
Right.
So
you're taking some credit for
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think alternate dimension Basil has made that movie, sent it across the interdimensional airwaves to try to get some sort of message. I think at the time I called it the most important movie since The Matrix.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
Yeah, so big deal. And apparently
Hollywood agrees with you.
Yes, the Academy
question your
thought so as well. Yeah. I'm just tuned into the trends and forces that rule our culture.
Sure.
It's part of my job.
Yep.
And with that, we're going to be talking about all sorts of fun stuff. So we better open up that big old can of disclaimer.
We should. Let's see. Where are we?
Do you want to do it?
What are we doing? Yeah.
Should we do it together?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the can. Here's my can opener.
It's time for a disclaimer.
Now listen up, YouTube.
That's right. And just for all the content moderators and censorship managers out there, be they robots or humans, everything you hear on this show comes directly from the mainstream corporate news media. We do not claim to be experts on healthcare, geopolitics, military strategy, corporate law, or the moral and ethical implications of any of these topics, nor do we implicitly or explicitly support or subscribe to any sources or narratives containing misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, as defined by the Department of Homeland Security. We're good boys. All right, YouTube, we're good boys. That's right. And let me give you a rundown.
Oh, look, here's Basil.
Let me bring you up to speed.
Okay, we're going to be starting out with deepfakes. That's right, the Intercept reporting the Special Forces Command, SOCOM, has come out right and said it. They want more deepfakes to control the propaganda of the entire world. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. A bit of an I told you so, but also very fun to just see it right out there, out in the open. Then, of course, FLIPPY update, harnessing the brain power of humans in order to evolve the future of future humans, which are robots. Then, first block of the show, we will be breaking down, talking about the Silicon Valley bank situation, the collapse of 3 banks now over the weekend. What does it mean for, I don't know, important stuff like waterfalls and the scent of flowers and the rising sun on a Sunday morning. You know, the really important stuff in life. But also, what does it mean for, I don't know, Trump or Thiel or anybody else that ultimately rules the world? Then, of course, CBDC's all wrapped up in that second half of show. The House voting to declassify all information about the origins of COVID-19. What does Fauci think about that? And, of course, Moderna coming up short in a court case when it comes to liability regarding the well, you know what. And then at the end of the show, we'll be checking in with a giant blob of seaweed. So stay tuned for that exciting story. But Gans, let's start with our lead stories.
We are in deepfake.
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are. Big fun news coming from the Intercept, Gans. The headline goes like this. U.S. Special Forces want to use deepfakes for Psyops, which, yeah, we know this.
That sounds about right. That's kind of been the main concern with the whole deepfake thing, but okay. Thank you, The Intercept, for putting into words in a headline what we have been ranting about for about a decade.
That's right. About 2016 was when we really dialed in on deepfakes, but The Intercept is catching up. That's nice. The headline image of this article is sort of a shot from beneath a paratrooper who has the SOCOM logo on his parachute, on the underside of his parachute.
Paracommandos.
With a gigantic American flag floating behind him, which I imagine is, how we infiltrate, Middle Eastern terrorist
just
organizations.
Come down from the sky with American flags.
Huge American flags floating from every paratrooper. So this is a wonderful article. I recommend everybody go check it out. Those of you on our newsletter list have this sitting right in your inbox right now. But there's some fun details. How do you like to do this, Gons? Would you like to start out and we can jump around, or you want me to
I can
lead you down the path?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Let's see what it says. U.S. Special Operations Command, responsible for some of the country's most secretive military endeavors, is gearing up to conduct internet propaganda and deception campaigns online using deepfake videos, according to federal contracting documents reviewed by The Intercept. Okay.
I love this.
All right.
I love the intro because, The Intercept, they're trying their darndest to be a respectable news outlet.
Journalist outlet, journalism.
Yeah, so they they have to go with the hard evidence, which is, we found it in a document that says they want to begin using deepfakes for propaganda and deception campaigns. When in fact, almost certainly they've been doing this for quite some time. It's just now starting to show up in official documents. Right. When something shows up in official documents, at least in the U.S. government, it's probably been going on for about a decade.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say. You think?
Yeah, at least minimum.
Yeah,
the plans,
and certainly the deepfake technology would not be what it is if it were not for funding from government organizations.
Right. The plans, which also describe hacking internet-connected devices to eavesdrop in order to assess foreign populations' susceptibility to propaganda. Wow, very careful words there. Come at a time of intense global debate over technologically sophisticated disinformation campaigns, their effectiveness, and the ethics of their use. So, okay, yeah, all right. While the U.S. government routinely warns against the risk of deepfakes and is openly working to build tools to counter them, the document from Special Operations Command, or SOCOM, represents a nearly unprecedented instance of the American government or any government openly signaling its desire to use the highly controversial technology offensively. SOCOM's next-generation propaganda aspirations are outlined in a procurement document that lists capabilities it's seeking for the near future and soliciting pitches from outside parties that believe they are able to build them. All right. Well, put the money out, or the funding out there, and somebody's going to bite and help them out.
Exactly.
Quote, when it comes to disinformation, the Pentagon should not be fighting fire with fire. Chris Meserole, head of the Brookings Institution's Artificial Intelligence and Emerging Technology Initiative, told The Intercept, quote, at the time when digital propaganda is on the rise globally, the U.S. should be doing everything it can to strengthen democracy by building support for shared notions of truth and reality. Shared notions of truth and reality. Not truth and reality at face value, just notions of it.
It's the notions.
Yeah. Deepfakes do the opposite. By casting doubt on the credibility of all content and information, whether real or synthetic, they ultimately erode the foundation of democracy itself. Meserole added, quote, if deepfakes are going to be leveraged for targeted military and intelligence operations, which they probably already have, then their use needs to be subject to review and oversight.
Yes.
That sounds about the kind of stuff you yell about after they're already doing it. Come out and say, we should We should talk about it. There needs to be oversight. It's like, yeah, probably.
I'd like to go back to the quote from Chris Messaroli there.
Sure.
When it comes to disinformation, the Pentagon should not be fighting fire with fire, meaning fighting disinformation with more disinformation, which is a noble thing to say, Chris, of course. We had ahead of the Brookings Institution's Artificial Intelligence and Emerging Technology Initiative.
Sure, yeah.
But fighting disinformation with more disinformation, it's kind of a weird time to be saying that this is not the way to do it, because it is becoming crystal clear that over the past 3 years, at least, in regards to very specific global anomalous headlines, that fighting disinformation with disinformation has been exactly what governments of the world have pretty much committed to doing with every fiber of their being. Now, it's a little bit more fun because SOCOM, as this article sort of recounts, is responsible for a lot of very exciting, military missions. Well, it says here, SOCOM typically fights in the shadows, but its public reputation and global footprint loom large. Comprised of the elite units from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force, SOCOM leads the most sensitive military operations of the world's most lethal nation. And it talks about Osama bin Laden and a lot of the
they're not talking about America? The most lethal nation?
Yeah, well, at least to Americans, you mean? Yeah, so this is like the real deal, SOCOM. That's all the most exciting things that we do. Skipping down below one of the images here, though Special Operations Command has for years coordinated foreign influence operations, these deception campaigns, I just love how they just call them what it is. Deception campaigns. Very, very nice of them to just use plain words, have come under renewed scrutiny. In December, the Intercept reported that SOCOM had convinced Twitter, in violation of its internal policies, to permit a network of sham accounts that spread phony news items of dubious accuracy, including a claim that the Iranian government was stealing the organs of Afghan civilians. Though the Twitter-based propaganda offensive didn't use deepfakes, researchers found that Pentagon contractors employed machine learning-generated avatars to lend the fake accounts to a degree of realism. So what we're seeing here is SOCOM is, deeply rooted in a habit of
catfishing.
Catfishing, utilizing technology, social media, the internet all together in deception campaigns. And this is used for destabilization. Of course, they would only use this to destabilize other governments, other countries.
Not our own people.
Oh, they would do it to protect us. Yeah. Provocatively, the updated capability document reveals that SOCOM wants to boost these internet deception efforts with the use of next-generation deepfake videos, an increasingly effective method of generating lifelike digital video forgeries using machine learning. Special forces would use this faked footage to, quote, generate messages and influence operations via non-traditional channels. The document adds.
What is a non-traditional channel? Like
podcasting.
Podcasting
and Twitter. That's non-traditional. As with foreign governmental disinformation campaigns, the U.S. has spent the past several years warning against the potent national security threat represented by deepfakes. The use of deepfakes to deliberately deceive government authorities, warn regularly, could have a deeply destabilizing effect on civilian populations exposed to them.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
It goes on about that for just a bit more. But then, a couple paragraphs down, perhaps as provocative as the mention of deepfakes in this section that follows, which notes SOCOM wishes to finely tune its offensive propaganda. Love it. Offensive propaganda, seemingly by spying on the intended audience through their internet guns.
Sorry, right when you mentioned internet connected devices on the live stream, you cut out. So just to make the point about the finicky nature of the internet connection. But continue.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's good because I didn't say much after that. So we're talking about IoT, the Internet of Things, and listeners to Canary Cry News Talk. We from about 2000 and I would say 13 and on have heard us talk about IoT, Internet of Things. That's having your smart toaster, your smart blender, your smart watch, your smart refrigerator, all these things making life very convenient. Also mechanisms for spying. And it seemed like a bit of a stretch at the time for us to be, freaking out over toasters on the internet. That is part of what sort of labeled us as crazy internet conspiracy theorists. Well, here we go. The government literally talking about using your internet toaster, your Facebook blender to spy on you, not for any other reason except for this reason. Described as a, quote, next generation capability to take over Internet of Things, IoT devices, for collecting data and information from local populaces to enable breakdown of what messaging might be popular and accepted through sifting of data once received. The document says that the ability to eavesdrop on propaganda targets, that's us, quote, would enable MISO to craft and promote messages that may be more readily received by local populace.
This is not MISO robotics, right? This is the government MISO. I think we've pointed out the coincidence there.
I think it's military intelligence something or other. So it's wonderful that it's just there in black and white now, that they are specifically asking for more of a budget, by the way. This is a procurement
Need
document.
more money.
Yeah, they're just asking for probably $1 billion to be able to scale their operations that they are already working on. Now, of course, they'll have us believe that this is so they can spy on Russians through their toasters and their appliances, in order to, do the research to see what kind of deepfake would most accurately or appropriately influence Russians or something. But it's just, you just are sort of forced to push it out of your mind that they might already be doing that here in the U.S.
It's kind of sad, too, because it is sort of the realm that you and I have been trekking in for 10 years. It's sort of this unofficial channel of the internet or whatever. And we knew that there's always going to be disinfo campaigns and, people that are specifically used to create dissent and things like that. I actually think there were some Face Like the Sun haters and, videos that were made by random people over the years where some of them was just kind of like, okay, whatever. A couple of them were kind of like, why do you have so much time on your hands to do this? Like, what is giving you, what is inspiring you to do this? And the only thing I can think of is some kind of program, getting some kind of financial gain out of it. Otherwise, why are you spending every single day on my YouTube channel commenting and even making your own videos about some whatever stuff, coming up with things about me that are completely untrue? But, I think that's just the nature of where we are, and especially the unofficial channels. I did want to tag on just real quickly this Atlantic article because I know you love the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And just to put a bow on top of this whole thing, and the headline is "The Age of Infinite Misinformation Has Arrived." And the subheading here is "Bad actors could seize on large language models to engineer falsehoods and unprecedented scales," or at unprecedented scales. It's interesting. They talk about bad actors, and after reading the Intercept article, I can only think of one bad actor. You know what I mean? It's not rogue eco-terrorists or something. Right. It's just the U.S. government. But okay, real quick. It talks about ChatGPT and, the fastest growing application. But the public and the tech giants aren't the only ones who have become enthralled with the big data-driven technology known as the large language models. Bad actors have taken note of the technology as well. At the extreme end, there's Andrew Torba, the CEO of far-right social network Gab, who said recently that his company is actively developing AI tools to, quote, uphold a Christian worldview. Dun, 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 be scared. of anybody that's making AI to uphold a Christian worldview. I thought that was interesting. That's their first example of a bad actor when it comes to big data-driven technology. So there you go. There's that. But, they're saying even though you may not be a radical extremist like the Gab people, nevertheless, you're going to have issues. It says down here, more recently, there's a Wharton professor they're quoting, Ethan Mollick, was able to get New Bing to write 5 detailed and utterly untrue paragraphs on dinosaurs' advanced civilization, filled with authoritative sounding morsels, including, for example, some researchers have claimed that the Pyramid of Egypt, the Nazca Lines of Peru, and the Easter Islands statues of Chile were actually constructed by dinosaurs or by their descendants or allies. And so he's kind of pointing out this idea that, hey, this ChatGPT AI model creating all this falsehood is a problem. And so he kind of lays out the issue, and then he starts getting into sort of his sort of tipping point being that the supply of misinformation will soon be infinite, to quote from 2020, Renee DeResta, research manager of the Stanford Internet Observatory. And then he talks about how each day is bringing us a little bit closer to this kind of information sphere disaster in which bad actors weaponize large language models, distributing their ill-gotten gains through armies of ever more sophisticated bots. We already face a problem with echo chambers that polarize our minds. This is The Atlantic, by the way. The mass-scale automated production of misinformation will assist in the weaponization of those echo chambers and likely drive us even further into extremes. Which is like, kidding. That's already happened.
Like the point.
yeah. One suggestion worth exploring, but likely insufficient, is to watermark or otherwise track content that is produced by large language models. Trouble is that bad actors could simply use alternative large language models to create what they want without watermarks. It's like, wow, you guys are really far behind on this conversation. A second approach is to penalize misinformation when it is produced at large scale. Currently, most people are free to lie most of the time without consequence, unless they are, of course, for example, speaking under oath. America's founders simply didn't envision a world in which someone could set up a troll farm and put out 1 billion mistruths in a single day, disseminated with an army of bots across the internet. We may need new laws to address such scenarios. A third approach, and this is the big one here, would be to build a new form of AI that can detect misinformation rather than simply generate it. Validating the output of larger language models will require developing new approaches to AI that center reasoning and knowledge, ideas that were once popular but are currently out of fashion. And that's sort of the takeaway. It's like, we got to build an AI to monitor all the AI.
Yeah.
This is not
AI police.
Yeah, this is not going in the right direction.
Well, and it's interesting, just to bring a quote from the Intercept article, which I think is referring to exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. This is a quote from General Kenneth Tovo of the Army Special Operations Command. Quote, "We have invested fairly heavily in our Psy-op operators," he said, "developing new capabilities, particularly to deal in the digital space, social media analysis, and a variety of different tools that have been fielded by SOCOM that allow us to evaluate the social media space, evaluate the cyber domain, see trend analysis, where opinion is moving, and then how to potentially influence that environment with our own products." And those products, I think, are deeply they are deeply excited by the idea of AI policing AI. Because, yeah, sure, maybe ChatGPT isn't hooked in right to SOCOM propaganda headquarters, but the AI that polices the AI, could be influence from from the top down. And not could be, but almost certainly is.
It is, will be, all the above. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything, everywhere, all the time.
Yep.
And with that, Gons, it is not everything, everywhere, all at once. It is now. It is this show, and it is Monday.
Gary, what day is it? Monday. Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Gary, what day is it? Monday.
That's right. It is Monday, folks, and we're all very excited about it. Hope your beginning of the week is starting off okay. We hope that the show brings just a little bit of value to your Monday, whether you're catching it live or maybe tuning in later. Anything exciting going on, Gons?
Well, I'm hoping nobody listening to the show had some kind of startup that was, being funded by some VCs over in San Francisco or New York. But I do want to make an announcement. I am moving to a whole new location. Sadly, not out of state, which is...
no, you're not.
What are you talking about? I am moving.
You're not moving far. You're not moving far enough.
It's sure. Okay. But I am moving. And so that it'll affect the show somehow, and I'm not sure how yet.
Okay. You got a timeline for this?
I think sometime in May we are making the official trek.
Yeah,
we're changing counties.
Time.
We're moving south a little bit. It's a little bit away from some of the more populated areas, so that's kind of nice. But see what happens. But
well, of course, we'll be attempting to keep the schedule as stable as possible. But if we all start emotionally preparing ourselves, we can get through this together, Guns.
Yeah. I may need to get like a punching bag or something.
Oh,
just to take the stress out,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Anything interesting? No. I will say
No.
baby chickens. Baby chickens grow faster than I ever could have imagined. They just grow up so fast, Guns. Soon these baby chickens will be going off to college, and I'll be an empty nester again. I forgot what kind of chickens these chicks were, but they are silkies. I know some people were interested in knowing that. Silkies, yes, the most ridiculous looking kind of chicken, and I think it's very fitting. I can't remember if we had a show after the most recent. Yeah, it was right before last show, I think. I had
the bunny,
another bunny
jailbreak.
Attack. Bunny jailbreak, right, yeah. Well, I'm happy to say that only 4 bunnies did not get returned to the pen.
You only lost 4.
I only lost 4, but I didn't even lose.
Not one lost sheep. Come on, you got to get out there. You got to be like Jesus. Got to find him.
Yeah, so they're not even lost. They're still here.
Okay.
They just hang out by the feed shed. They won't let me get close to them, but they know who puts the food on the table. So they're janitor bunnies is what it is.
4 of them that are just sort of rebellious, and
they hang around. Yeah, they're
like
loose.
goons.
They're like guard bunnies. They roam the property looking for vagrant leaves to eat, just making sure that no, invasive grass species takes root or something.
Sure.
Very cute, but don't worry, everybody, they're safe. And with that, I think it's time we thank some executive producers.
Executive producers.
That's right. We're on the value for value model. Do you get value from this show? Well, consider putting value back in. It's the only way that the show continues. We take no corporate money whatsoever, which is, well, sort of traditionally a bad idea. But the involvement of corporate money means that there's involvement of corporate interests. And whether that's explicit or implicit, it's what's the word? I don't know. What is the word? Oh no! It's Monday and I forgot all my good words.
Yeah.
Anyways, corporate money bad.
The toilets.
It spends just like everybody else's, but we would have to give up too much of our principles in order to get enough of it. So instead, we are entirely funded by producers of the show. That is people like you who get value from this show and realize that the only way that it can continue is by putting value back in. I know it's a bit of a paradigm shift. It's all something that makes sense to us, but the idea that this show could disappear with lack of producership seems to be one that people kind of scoff at. But I'll tell you what, it is when you're thinking of what ways could we improve not only the media space of the world that we live in, but also the integrity of those trying their hardest in that media space. Taking out corporate financial incentives is a great way to start. And so that's why we do this. Value for value. If you get value, put value back in. You can do it with your time, your talent, or your treasure, however you want to do it. But the executive producers are people who come in. They are generous with the value that they receive and put in. And that's why we're going to thank them now. These are people who came in with $100 or more to support this episode. So we're all very grateful. Are you ready?
Ready.
Starting with executive producer Sir Captain Redbeard, Pirate King of the D-Moochers.
Hey, Sir Captain Redbeard. Good to see you. Thank you.
Been a while. And of course, he is the Pirate King of the D-Moochers. So Sir Captain Redbeard needs to be D-Mooched. Thank you very much. Sir Captain Redbeard comes in with a nice round number, so we do not disclose the amount, but has a little note here. It says, happy 600th episode. Apparently, Putin22 and I share the same birthday. So happy birthday, Putin22. I hope it was a meow-tastic day.
Happy birthday.
That's right. Happy birthday to both of you, Putin22 and Sir
Putin, right? Putin, like a cat Putin, but
it's Putin. Putin22 is the name, but you know, Sir Captain, little
Sir
rascal,
Captain Redbeard,
having a little fun here. Putin22.
Putin22.
There you go. Thank you very much, executive producer Sir Captain Redbeard, Pirate King of the D-Moochers.
Where'd you find this?
Thank you very much. Very generous.
Next up, we've got executive producer Robert M.
Robert M. Thank you.
Yeah. And executive producer Robert M. sends in $111.11.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. A lot of ones. And sends a note here. I appreciate what you guys do. Y'all were the ones who introduced me to No Agenda in early 2020, actually. Both of your shows kept me sane during all the mis, dis, and mal info we were bombarded with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is easy to see why the masses are so caught up in the brainwashing when able to break free and gain a new perspective from a biblical lens. Propaganda is one heck of a drug. Anyway, please deduce me, and I apologize for taking such a long time to donate to such an incredible show. God bless both of you, Robert M.
Hey, Robert
Thank you
M.
very
Thank
much,
you.
executive producer Robert M., and let's give him that D-mooch.
Where'd you find this?
Thank you, Robert M.
Indeed. Well, we've got one more executive producer here, and you know him, you love him. He is on a 4-episode executive producer streak. That's Sir Martin K. Night of the Wrong Timeline.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Thank you, Sir Martin K.
Very impressive. Thank you very much, Sir Martin K. Night of the Wrong Timeline. He sends a little note here to continue the saga of notes going back and forth here. And I needed this one because I need to be corrected often. He says, ah, ha, 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 ha. You keep switching around with me being a Dutchman and a Dane, Basil. LOL. Okay, look. I am an American man.
Yep.
Which means
I probably make the same mistake.
No possible way for me to know the difference between a Dutchman and a Dane. But I'm about to learn, everybody. Listen up, Americans. We're going to figure this out together. The Dutch are from the Netherlands. That sounds right. Okay. The Danes are from Denmark. Okay. I think that there is a contingent of Americans who think that the Netherlands and Denmark are the exact same place. I think
I agree with you. I don't think people know the difference.
Right?
Yeah, that's got to be a thing. Yeah.
That's on us. I'll say that. That's on us, Sir Martin.
Well, I mean, education is not. It's not been clearly talking too, but education hasn't been a focus in America for a while. So I can understand geography, especially, European countries, especially.
Well, when you consider that the most reliable place that students in high school learn their geography is from a cartoon called the Animaniacs.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, 2, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, something Chile, Brazil. I can go on. I'll stop.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was just going to let you go as far as you needed.
There's a bunch of verses, I don't want to get through that. I know the end. The end is fun because it goes Crete, Mauritania, then Transylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan. That's how it ends. So
yeah.
There's Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Finland, Germany now in peace, Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece. Yeah, I memorized that song in high school. No, not high school. I was in 4th grade.
It's really impressive. I never did memorize it. I had a history class in high school where we were encouraged to memorize the song.
Oh, seriously?
And I did not do it. Yeah.
Oh, it was ahead of my time then.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Well, you had probably the type of parents that got you on that early.
Sure, yeah. I learned it in Kumon. It was a Japanese math class that I learned the song. No, I'm just kidding. It's just one of those nerdy things that I do when I was a kid.
Sir Martin K continues.
Sure.
Yes, the Dutch are from the Netherlands, the Danes are from Denmark, the Norwegians are from Norway, and the Swedes, well, the Sweden is just an embarrassment at this point. LOL. Burn on Sweden.
Wow, okay.
They love, the Nordic countries love to burn Sweden.
Yeah.
And then he says, hashtag systembloget. I don't know what the pronunciation of that would be.
I think we're supposed to Google it because we don't know
Systembloget.
what that is.
No, I already did.
You already know.
So if you don't know what that is, then Google it. So Systembolaget is a Swedish company. And what the Swedes have done is if you want to buy any alcohol over 3.5%, it is a monopoly in Sweden that it is all sold through this Systembolaget company. It's the only place that you can purchase alcohol over 3.5% unless you're at a bar or a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. Some fun details. They can't do any discounts. No buy one, get one free. No, 2 for 1, nothing like that.
Is that any alcohol or is it classified? What
do you mean?
Spirits, but you can get wine still.
Anything over 3.5%, which would include most wines. Yeah. The minimum age to purchase beverages above 3.5% alcohol is 20 years of age, and their beer drinking age is 18. So you got to be older to get more than that. Let's see here. Where are some of the crazy stuff? They close at 200 hours on weekdays. What is that? That's 10 o'clock. 10 p.m., no, yeah. 8 o'clock on weekdays.
Oh yeah,
and 1500 on Saturdays. So for 3 in the afternoon on Saturdays, you gotta purchase your alcohol before 3, and they're closed on Sundays. So yeah, apparently it's this really interesting monopoly.
Sounds like there's a whole underground economy that's there, but we just we're not seeing
black market.
Yeah, like
booze.
A black market after hours.
It certainly opens up that makes an industry for it.
Yeah,
for sure. So anyways, there you go. That is Sir Marty K's evidence that the Swedes need to get their act together. His note continues, the only thing us Scandinavians have in common with the Dutch is that we used to raid and pillage that Dutch village back in the good old Viking days. LOL. And then he gives us his dad joke with a setup here. One podcaster said to the other podcaster, that's it, fella. I had enough. Are you finished? And the other podcaster said, no, I'm Danish. Well, how about that?
There you go.
Oh, he says, say it like Boris. Well, how about that? Thank you very much. Executive producer, streaker, Sir Marty K. Now to the wrong timeline.
Where'd you find this?
Thank you very much, Sir Martin K.
Okay, that concludes our list of financial executive producers for this episode. Thank you so much. If anybody else would like to jump in and support this show, it is a short list today, so it'd be appreciated if you were just waiting for the right moment to strike. You can head on over to canarycry.support, and thank you for your patronage.
Canarycry.support. Shut up and take my money. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your patronage.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Time for the Flippy update, folks. Flippy is our colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world. Now there's nothing we can do about it. Today's Flippy update is coming from newscientist.com, and the headline, Amazon wants you to help train robots by playing a video game. A video
Feels
game.
kind of Ender's Gamey, doesn't it?
Yeah, but instead of fighting aliens, you're packing boxes and working.
This is the early stages. This is the origin story.
Amazon has created a video game called Alexa Arena, in which you interact with virtual robots. It's designed to gather data to train robots and how to behave around humans, but there are doubts over how many people will actually play the game. Amazon hasn't... They start right out with it, and let me tell you, they stick with the theme.
Yeah.
Amazon has industrial robots for its vast warehouses, but also develops consumer devices such as the Astro home robot, which launched in 2021. The robots are trained using data from physical tests in which robots and people interact in various scenarios. But such tests take a long time to do in large enough numbers to be useful and can be expensive. Alexa Arena is intended to stand in for real-world tests at much lower cost, say Kuaiji Gao in the Amazon Alexa AI team and his colleagues in a research paper. They say the game, in which you interact with a virtual robot or agent to help it complete certain tasks, uses, quote, engaging visual effects to make it enjoyable, as well as items such as a freeze ray and a time machine that you can use on objects.
Ooh, a time machine in the Amazon factory. This is only like disgruntled Amazon employees get stoked about a game like this. Or something. I don't even know.
Sethu Vijayakumar at the University of Edinburgh, UK, says Amazon's approach to creating a simulation that is also enjoyable for the public to play is like, quote, killing two birds with one stone. Quote, making it fun will get people to interact with it in a game-playing fashion. We really want people to play this game in a game-playing fashion, so we better make it fun.
Sounds like this person has
Scrap
never played.
The plans for the boring game.
Never played.
We got to make a fun game.
Okay.
But also, it's generating realistic human behavioral data from it in which your agent, like your robot, is moving around and interacting, he says. Quote, when we make robots that adapt and learn, it is very hard for them to physically experience every possible scenario that they may encounter in the future.
That's true for every conscious entity with a body in this time-space continuum.
Here. It's difficult to experience every possible scenario, Gons. Adding that game.
Does this guy, does he in his daily life just like, I just see the sea of possibilities and I pick one and I go
He's got a bucket list.
Is Dr. Strange talking? What is going on here?
His bucket list is to experience every possible scenario. He says, adding that games like this will help expand the scenarios that can be tested. One potential hurdle is that people may not want to play the game. Richard Bartle at the University of Essex, UK, says Alexa Arena is what researchers call a game with a purpose, rather than a game played for its own sake, so it may have limited appeal. They are really not confident in their ability to make a fun game, are they? Quote, this particular game won't be fun for many people, he says. Quote, players may decide it's rubbish and never play it again, but while they're discovering that fact, they're still making judgments that are useful to Amazon. 1,000 players playing 1,000 times each is the same, from Amazon's perspective, as 1 million players playing once each. Ooh, this guy can do math.
Wait, that's lying with statistics, isn't it? I mean, that's like a manipulation tactic.
Good point. Even if no one signs up to play the game when it is launched, it could still be useful, says Mehmet Doger at the University of Leeds, UK. He points out that Amazon could use its own Mechanical Turk crowdsourcing service, where users are paid small amounts to carry out tasks for their users, to hire people to play the game to generate data, which would still be cheaper than running physical tests. Amazon did not respond to a request for comment. Oh, you mean you're writing an article about this boring game that no one wants to play? Even professors are like, yeah, problem with this game. Nobody's going to want to play it. It's very boring. It's going to train robots, but those robots are going to lie dormant because nobody wants to play. We're going to have to pay people to play this game.
Is this a screenshot from the actual game here? Where it has it's 3D kind of, it looks 90s office type of deal.
Yeah,
it's got
like you're in an office simulator,
right? It's got posters on the wall, a cork board, some drawers.
Yeah, it literally looks like an office simulator.
Insert the floppy disk into the computer in the main office, displaying a skull.
Yes, that's your first mission. Insert a floppy disk.
People like skulls. How much data can they scrap? Wow, this is really funny.
Spooky.
This is they are not confident about this product.
No, so it's fun because, of course, in this world of AI and machine learning and simulations and robots coming into not just every industry, but every home. And the FLIPPY update has been focused on the interactions between humans and robots. They want us to consider robots more as people. They don't want us to abuse the robots. There's such thing as robot racism now. There's issues with the relationships that people are building with their robots. Some of them see them as toasters, while others are trying to marry them. And this idea, this focus on how to best manage the relationship between people and robots is maybe the biggest question of the century that we are currently in, because it will guide the future of our entire civilization. And it's a clever idea. It's like in the mid-teens, the mid-20 teens, the idea of gamifying,
right? Like gamification of everything, your office, your
possible
business,
your bank account was gamified. Weight loss was gamified. Everything was gamified. It's kind of funny. It kind of feels like an old idea now. And in this case, they're trying to gamify the research of how robots and humans should interact. But they are so not confident in their ability to make this a fun game. I want to play the game now.
Well, the first mission being remove a computer virus from an infected computer. That's you pick up the floppy disk and put the floppy disk in the computer. That's some compelling stuff there.
It looks like a VR game. It looks like maybe...
Yeah. That's the only way people will actually even traverse its world is VR.
Such a hit piece from New Scientist, because I can't even find a link to the game. They don't even link to where you could play it if you want it. They are so offended by how boring it is. So that's there funny. You go. This is one way. This is what I thought was interesting. This is one way that regular people can sort of get involved on purpose, not secretly be used for training like a CAPTCHA.
Right.
CAPTCHAs when you sign into an account and you have to click on the fire hydrants and then the cars and then the bikes, and they still don't believe you're not a robot. So then you got to click on all the palm trees. As we know, that's actually training AI for visual recognition of those things. And it was a way for them to sort of build a product to trick everyone into training AI with human knowledge. And in the same way, they're trying to make a game that will train Amazon's robots, because people want to play the game. Problem is, boring game. Nobody wants to play it. They are literally going to have to pay people to play the game. Amazon's Mechanical Turk. Are you aware of this thing?
No.
Yeah, it's a thing. Anybody can go sign up. And basically, Amazon makes it available for themselves and other software people. Where, if you don't have a job or you want to make a couple extra bucks, you can go sign up for Amazon Mechanical Turk, and you get paid to just kind of play around with other people's stuff. It's kind of like getting paid to
it's like a product check kind of thing.
Take a survey, those things where you get paid a few cents to take a survey, and you can sit there and take surveys all day long, make a couple bucks. It's kind of like that, but usually for software development and things like that. So anyways, we're at a crossroads, Gons. They tried to trick us into training the robots through this game. I do kind of want to play it because I liked the idea that I can play a role in messing up the data for the Amazon robots.
There's probably
and maybe teach these robots a thing or two about life.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how the data gets interpreted. If there's a lot of engagement the first couple minutes, and then a lot of people stop moving the cursor or whatever. Does the data collection? Do they know that it's because you fell asleep or you're on to another game or?
Yeah, when you close the game 30 seconds in, they're probably like, oh, well, but it is funny. Consider that robots, especially the ones Amazon is making, are supposed to be sort of daily interaction robots. It's your Alexa sitting on your desk. It's your little, what is it called? Their other little robot that they mentioned in this article, Astro. Home robot is kind of their, it's their attempt to making a little robot butler, but he's kind of cute. It's kind of like having a pet, but he's supposed to help you out quite a bit. It's sort of supposed to be mundane working with these robots. These robots, the way they interact or integrate with our lives is precisely by not being very exciting, by becoming essential, but becoming sort of essential in a very boring way. Much like, your cell phone or your toaster or your
this
refrigerator.
Whole thing, the whole Flippy thing started with your vacuums. Remember?
That's right. Roomba. Yeah. Same thing. As a former Roomba sort of, I used to rule a battalion of Roombas that would clean my house every day. It is extraordinarily boring. And eventually they do try to escape, and you have a choice. You can just let them just buzz off into the horizon, or you can chase them down in front of your neighbors. But there you go. That's the next step into the robot apocalypse, Gone. It's time to go play this game.
From robot apocalypse to dollar apocalypse. Well, my weekend, I don't know about yours, but my weekend was just filled with trying to keep track of the banks falling apart. Started with, the Silicon Valley Bank, but even before then. So you're saying Wednesday they were starting to talk about a little bit of banks having some issues.
So Wednesday was the day that Silicon Valley Bank officially announced being insolvent, or whatever word they want to use.
Right.
And for those, we might need to back up a little bit. Silicon Valley Bank was the 16th largest bank in the country, which doesn't, I don't know, I kind of go back and forth on whether that sounds impressive or not. See, it's impressive enough, I think.
Sure.
And they're an interesting bank because they focused mainly on helping tech startups.
Right.
And there's some pretty notable companies that had big accounts with the Silicon Valley Bank, and that's including Roku and stuff, companies like that. But it specifically was kind of weird in the sense that during the Silicon Valley tech startup boom, there was a contingent of investors who would invest bunches of money in new tech startups, but they would insist that the startup bank with Silicon Valley Bank. It was this weird sort of inside Silicon Valley, big tech sort of, I don't know, agreement they all made that, hey, if we're going to keep this boom going, everybody, you got to do it through this bank. And there's hundreds and thousands of tech startups that more or less were sort of pressured to use this bank. And Silicon Valley Bank was unique because the way that it gets really complicated, the way that they were set up allowed them to be a little bit more loosey-goosey with what they did with the money once it was in their hands. It was nothing illegal. It was all legal. It's just unusual, and not very many banks do handle money the way that Silicon Valley Bank did. And funny enough, I don't know how you want to actually go through this. Do you have something you want to read, or you want to? Oh, okay. Let me do this. Okay. We'll get into the details, but it is not because what made Silicon Valley Bank different that caused their insolvency. It was what they did that was boring. Right. Yeah, they did very boring,
most conservative thing they could do is what caused this. Yeah,
exactly, and that's where the big scandal is here, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
It wasn't that they were a unique bank and were irresponsible in some way, although that's obviously being debated now. It was because they were conservative, because they did the smart, safe thing that they inevitably became insolvent. But I'll let you start out.
I mean, I think most people listening to the show, they know kind of what happened, but the greater sort of systemic issue with our entire financial infrastructure is something that, Ron Paul used to talk a lot about, and there's others who've discussed the issues with the US dollar and how finicky the whole system is. And we saw the cracks, obviously a huge crack in 2008. And so we had two banks go down over the weekend. I think it was the second and third biggest bank failures since 2008, or of all time in America. But then happening, two happening, number two, number three happening back to back on a weekend, after the 2008 situation. But there's a clip here that I just wanted to play because it kind of got the round. Snopes did a debunk of it, which is ridiculous. I'm not going to get into that. It's wasting time if we do. But it's from an episode of The Simpsons. Of course, they predict everything, right? This was first aired in April 16th of 1995. I was 12 years old. I remember seeing this. I remember watching this scene as a 12-year-old boy. So this is season 6, episode 21. And it's when Bart causes a bank run at First Bank of Springfield, which is hilarious because, of course, their acronym there is BS. The bank BS. And here's the scene.
What do you mean the bank is out of money? Insolvent? You only have enough cash for the next 3 customers! Hey,
just a second here. No, I don't have your money here. It's in Bill's house and Fred's house.
Hey, what are you doing with my money in your house, Fred?
It's a little violent. Now they turn on each other. And Bart walks away, sort of the manipulator, the cloak and dagger, stirring issues, causing a bank run. And there's an individual that is being accused of being sort of a Bart Simpson in this occasion. We'll get to him. But so after Thursday, Wall Street's 4 top banks just had $55 billion wiped off their market value in a single day. So that happened. That was not good for confidence. And then Friday, Silicon Valley Bank is shut down by regulators in biggest bank failures since global financial crisis. And by the way, let me point out, I did mention how Gavin Newsom got COVID this last week.
Yeah, good timing.
Pretty good timing to get COVID. I got to isolate, guys. He did put out a statement. It was like a 1-sentence statement. But the guy who runs the state where this whole thing is starting to fall apart is got COVID, so convenient.
Yeah.
Also, on Sunday, Signature Bank goes down, and a lot of these have the crypto tie, and we can obviously talk about the crypto side of things as well. New York Times reporting risky bet on crypto and a run on deposits tanks Signature Bank. They keep blaming crypto. Crypto's bad. Crypto's the reason why it all went down. And as we'll see, maybe that is a little bit of a misdirection as well. And then this morning, which is Monday, we had 12 regional banks stocks halting trading. That's as of this earlier this afternoon. We had First Republic Bank plunge 66.6%, which is a fun number. I'm sure it's just a coincidence there. But yeah, chaos in the markets, turmoil as confidence in traditional banking dissipates. And we'll get to Joe Biden stepping in to save the day. But there's some people to blame, right? We got to figure out who's to blame. What happened here? Well, the first person on our list here that at least the public is blaming is Peter Thiel. This is Business Insider, and the headline: Peter Thiel's Founders Fund got its cash out of Silicon Valley Bank before it was shut down, report says. And we just talked about Peter Thiel doing the whole speech at, I think, what was it? Was it Oxford? Where he was talking about how we need to go against the one world authoritarian government or something like that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's pulling money out of failed banks in Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel's Founders Fund had no cash left in Silicon Valley Bank on Thursday as it began to unravel, Bloomberg reported. A source told Bloomberg the PayPal co-founders fund had moved to close its exposure to the failing bank after running into problems using SVB's services. The venture capital group had been engaging in a capital call where it asked investment partners to send funds to invest in a company by transferring funds to its Silicon Valley Bank account. However, the funds didn't immediately go through as expected. And it goes on here. But if you're pulling money out right before a big collapse and you're supposed to be this like billionaire insider guy, you can cause a bank run.
Yeah. And it wasn't just him pulling his money out. He sent out a newsletter, I believe, to all of his founders.
Right.
Yeah, right. He sent out a newsletter that was like, "Oh, this is going to happen. Go get your money. You're not going to be like." He basically pulled a full-on Bart Simpson, as far as I can tell.
Insolvent, yeah, the whole deal. After he had already pulled his cash out, of course. But he wasn't alone. You know, of course, that's easy to point out the billionaire doing some hanky-panky in the background. But also Fortune.com. Silicon Valley Bank's CEO sold $3.6 million of stock in potentially problematic transaction days before historic bank failure. So never a good look when your CEO is selling millions of dollars worth of stock just a few days before the whole thing gets shut down.
Yeah.
And, I've been part of this whole Celsius network collapse situation. Difficult lesson learned on self-custody of your own crypto. But part of the discussions, and I'm learning more and more about bankruptcy, and it's just stuff I never really wanted to learn about. But in the process, there's something called clawbacks, which is, something being discussed right now, which is basically there's retail clawbacks where, just regular depositors get asked to send their money back that they took out within a certain day before, they shut down or whatever. I don't know that they're going to have this here because they're getting basically bailed out, even though, they're not calling it a bailout. But it's possible that should certain people take legal action against the Silicon Valley Bank CEO, that he will be caught in some clawbacks. But at this point, it really doesn't matter because I think
that's like the least of the
people don't care
thing going on.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
But if you want some, financial justice, you gotta at least hope. And this is the. Sorry, did you have another? No, I was just gonna go. I was gonna go into the whole Dodd-Frank situation with the Trump.
Well, so Peter Thiel is one of the people are complaining about, or at least shouting about.
Yeah.
There is, of course, we can't have some sort of bad thing happen without someone bringing up Trump. It's Trump's fault. Trump did it. If only Trump would have not been such a crazy orange man, then maybe these banks would not have collapsed. I mean, it makes total sense, right? So head on over to NBCnews.com. The headline, this is not the archived version, and it's got a paywall on it.
On NBC?
You got to remember. Yep. I have always been getting a paywall on NBC now. It's all right. I got it. Silicon Valley Bank collapse puts new spotlight on a 2018 bank deregulation law. Now, where was that Wall Street Journal one?
I didn't see it in there. You told me about it before the show, and I actually didn't find it. So
will you read this a little bit, and I'll pull it up?
Sure. Okay. So this article, it's the NBC News article. Washington, the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank are putting new scrutiny on the 2018 law that rolled back some banking regulations, with some Democrats calling to restore those rules as the federal government steps in to protect SVB depositors. Quote, the White House and banking regulators should reverse the dangerous bank deregulation of the Trump era, repealing the 2018 legislation that weakened the rules for banks like SVB must be an immediate priority for Congress, end quote, Senator Elizabeth Warren wrote in a New York Times opinion piece Monday. Rep. Katie Porter, Democrat California, who is running for Senate, said she's working on legislation in the House to reverse the 2018 law, which was led by Republicans and signed by then-President Donald Trump. Quote, Congress, in a bipartisan vote, caved to Wall Street and loosened our nation's banking laws. Have no problem standing up to Wall Street, so I'm writing legislation to reverse that risky law, she wrote in an email to supporters Sunday. And it goes into a little bit here about, we can read more about what Warren said, but I don't think that's really the point.
Here's the thing. Okay. In 2000, after the 2008 collapse or whatever you want to call it, there's Bear Stearns was the first bank in that collapse that went bad. It went bad like SVB. And, this was all due at the time to bad financial products, subprime mortgage loans, where the banks, we were basically throwing money out the window. Anybody coming and asking for a loan for a house, they'd give it to them because it didn't really matter if the people could actually pay it. Didn't matter if they were getting it over their heads. None of this really mattered because it wasn't about getting the loan paid back. It was about now buying and selling of that loan on the backside, on the bank side. And this is something that regular people like us, it was a hard and strange lesson in 2008 because we thought, the bank gives me money and they really, really want me to pay it back. It's very important that I pay it back. Well, what we learned was it didn't really actually matter if you're going to pay it back or not, because what they do is they give you the loan. That loan is now a financial product that they sell to other banks. And banks are buying and selling these loans to one another, packaging them up thousands at a time and just sort of
it's making it look like they're doing something. They're making it look like there's a value to the companies.
Nonsense. Right. And so lo and behold, everybody who got all these cheap loans couldn't pay them back because they were just getting in over their head. Well, that caused the collapse, or at least that's part of what is being blamed for the collapse of 2008. Now, this resulted in a series of rules called the Dodd-Frank
bill.
And in the Dodd-Frank bill, there was a bunch of rules that addressed it. Like, banks could no longer run hedge funds, and they could no longer take risks, like big risky moves with people's money. Banks,
which, by the way, hopefully people understand that when you put money in a bank, they are taking that money and using it to make money.
Yeah, they're either giving out loans or they're investing it, or they're doing this kind of stuff.
And they're using. Can't they basically loan it out 10 different times? As for each dollar you put in, they're able to loan out 10 kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. They do a lot of things. They're allowed to do a lot of things that make no sense.
There were rules about, hey, you got to actually have 10% in there, to do it.
Right.
After COVID, that went to zero. It's like you didn't have to have anything in the vault as long, to actually lend it. So
So it's
crazy.
Beautiful. It was a beautiful setup. Like, of course, what we're seeing now, of course, happened. But Dodd-Frank, there was something called the Volcker Rule, which restricts how banks can invest. It limits things like speculative trading and proprietary trading, and just makes banks do banking stuff, not crazy Wolf of Wall Street type of stuff. It established a couple of oversight committees,
got rid of some old
program. Ones. It really reined in the banking sector, mainly just telling them they couldn't take outrageous risks with people's money. Okay, they're saying, hey, banks, be safe because people's entire lives depend on you, right? Now, there's, of course, a lot of consternation about this in the banking industry. It was not without its flaws. But in 2018, Trump signs a rollback of these bank rules. So a lot of those rules got rolled back. A lot of the regulation on banking got deregulated, which, at the time seemed like an okay idea. Now, I'm not an economic professional. I don't fully understand why or why not that was a good or bad idea, but it's being talked about now in regards to SVB.
We have the link to the CNBC article that has that, and it says in here the opponents to Trump, however, have argued the changes. This is right when Trump reversed it. Have argued the changes could open taxpayers to more liability if the financial system collapses.
Right.
Or increases the chance of discrimination in mortgage lending. So
that was another big one.
Yeah.
Dodd-Frank made it so if a bank goes bad, U.S. taxpayers' tax money does not go to bailing out banks. Basically said, we will not bail you out, banks. You will not get bailed out, which was to disincentivize banks from being risky. So they couldn't just do a bunch of crazy stuff and then get bailed out by taxpayers.
Dogecoin.
Sure. I don't know why you just yelled Dogecoin.
I'm just saying, bad risky investments is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one of the issues with rolling it back. Now, we are in a position where the government has said they are not going to bail out SVB, even though technically I'm sure there's a way that they could do it. However, what they are doing is guaranteeing that all depositors, that's people who had money in SVB Bank, will get their money back. Now, this is not money that is coming from the taxpayers. This is money from FDIC. FDIC is the insurance company that protects your money in a bank from the government. Now, right now, your bank account, most people's bank accounts are insured up to $250,000, which means if your bank goes bad, up to $250,000 in your bank account is guaranteed by the government. And banks pay a premium for this protection, and it's supposed to be a good idea. Now, the problem with SVB is that Roku, one of the corporations that bank with SVB, has $500 million in one bank account. Now,
that's a little more than $250K.
Now, this brings up a lot of other questions.
Why are they doing it in one account? Why
Roku was keeping $500 million in a single bank account. This is highly unusual, which means, $499.7 million are technically uninsured in that bank account, which, look, the CEO of Roku is going to have some explaining to do. Somebody is. But anyways, so that's a bunch of money that's not insured. But the government has come out, or the FDIC has come out and said, we will cover all of it, which they're not actually obligated to do. They're only obligated to cover $250,000 per account. So this is a little strange. It's a little strange because even though the government is not bailing them out with tax dollars, they are effectively bailing this bank out entirely. If what the government is saying is true, then nobody will lose any money.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is shareholders in the bank are not getting paid. You're
sort of summarizing all the Joe Biden points he made here. I have a clip of it. If you want me to play
so
it,
he talks about it. Okay, so I'll leave that there. Now, the weird thing about SVB is this, and I think maybe that's why the government is so interested in making it right. SVB was not participating in risky behavior. They were not necessarily, doing the same stuff that was being done in 2008. They were not giving out subprime mortgages. They were not doing proprietary trading or running hedge funds or anything risky. The reason they went bad is because they invested heavily in U.S. Treasury bonds. Now, do you have a source for the early pandemic Treasury bond situation?
Yes, I did.
Okay, pull that up.
I think, here we go. This is New York Times, and this is from August of 2021. And the headline here, banks are binging on bonds, but not because they want to. And the article basically talks about how, because 2021, there was so much capital, so much money printing. Everybody was doing well, and nobody was taking loans. So the banks had all this money. They're like, what do we do with it? Well, I guess we'll just buy government debt because that's the safest thing you can do. It's not as exciting. It's the least lucrative asset, but hey, it's safe. Let's do that. So that's what they did.
Yeah. And these treasury bonds are considered like the safest possible thing to do with your money. Like Gonz mentioned here, they're not very exciting. You have to hold them for a long time, but they have a guaranteed return.
Oh, yeah. But then they're locked in, too. These bonds, depending on which ones you buy, you got 10-year locked loans or 5-year, 1-year, 3-year, whatever. So
so you have to hold on to it for a certain amount of time, but you are guaranteed a return. It's backed by the government, and it's very closely tied with, and this is the problem, they're very closely tied with interest rates. The Fed's been talking about raising interest rates. It's like they're trying to fight inflation because of all the money printing. And in 2021, the interest rate was rock bottom. It was
0.
It was incredible. It had never been that low in, I think, our lifetimes. It was the lowest interest rate my generation had ever seen. And that's good. That's good for bonds because, long story short, just helps the bonds stay valuable. And the government projected. Do you have the projection there?
I do. Yeah, this is tweeted out from Balaji. He's the one who wrote the network state. And he says here that we can prove promises were broken by the Fed. Every quarter, the Fed publishes rate forecasts. What did they forecast back in December of 2020? Well, their median estimate for 2023's rate. So back in 2020, they were saying 2023's rate is going to be 0.1%.
0.1.
But today it's actually 4.75, off by a factor of more than 47x. So that's a big time miss there. So anybody who bought long-term bonds in December 2020 under the guidance of the Fed is destroyed right now.
Exactly.
They thought they were going to have 0.1, but it's 4.75 with all this interest rate.
The SVB, or Silicon Valley Bank, listened to the Fed. The Fed said the interest rate would be 0.1 in 2023. So what do? You basically got a clue from the Federal Reserve that the safest way to make a bunch of money is to buy a bunch of U.S. Treasury bonds. And considering U.S. Treasury bonds are the safest possible investment, they have a guaranteed return. You just got to hold them for long enough. The Fed was saying that the interest rate was going to be 0.1 this year instead of 4.7 or whatever it's at.
4.75,
the wise, responsible thing to do as a bank was to buy as many of these treasury bonds as possible. And that's exactly what SVB did at the suggestion of the Federal Reserve. They were being good. They did what the government told them to do. And then, of course, lo and behold, what happens? We're here.
Rugged.
Interest rates are 4.7. Their bonds are not worthless, but they're losing a bunch of money on these bonds. And they kind of ran out of money because Peter Thiel, whether it was Peter Thiel or it was the CEOs,
started pulling money out, and everyone freaked out, and they all started pulling money out, and then there's no monny because they never had any money.
Well, they had the money. All their money was just wrapped up in treasury bonds. So because everybody was running to the bank to pull out their money, they had to sell these bonds at a huge loss, and that's what made them insolvent. So you have a situation where they basically got conned by the government. They listen to the Fed. And buying these treasury bonds, it's kind of like you're kind of putting your faith in the American government. That's what you're doing. Yeah. You're putting faith in the system. So they put faith in the American government. The the Federal Reserve said, "Don't worry, this is super safe. Do it." They did it. And what happens? Over the past year, we've all felt it. The Fed hikes up rates over and over and over and over again to fight inflation. And that is what takes down SVB.
Yeah.
At least in the SVB's case, that's the main factor. And so to have people talking about Dodd-Frank being repealed by Trump is almost...
It's completely it's a non sequitur.
Has nothing to do with
it. Has nothing to do with why this happened.
At least in SVB's case, because SVB went bad not because they took risks, but because they didn't take risks, because they did the safe thing. So anybody trying to say that Trump made SVB fail because rolling back Dodd-Frank is just politicizing the matter for obvious reasons. Yeah. Now, I think that is why the Federal Reserve, it's not the Fed, it's the FDIC, is coming in and covering depositors. Because all of SVB's major depositors are big tech companies. Okay, this is not a bunch of middle class working folk who keep their money in Silicon Valley Bank. It is all big tech. And I would love to hear somebody respond, somebody in the government tell us that if a regional bank that wasn't filled with money from Roku and Roblox and big tech companies, there's no way on earth that they would be covering all of the depositors' money. It's no way. It is simply because it is elite technocratic lizard people losing money that they're even considering covering all the depositors.
Most of the startups are pretty much failures too, aren't they? I mean, most startups fail.
Most are, and most of these ones are. Yeah.
So
there's Roku and Roblox, I think, are the biggest ones.
Yeah.
So I think Circle's in there too.
Circle's in there had 3.3 billion. The company that issues the USDC stablecoin, which I think that they're going to roll out as the sort of proto CBDC in America. So maybe this was a way to, kill it and then zombify it from the government gets its claws in there, and then they can start issuing it. But yeah, to sort of summarize it, they Fed
got bait and switched by the government.
The Fed prints trillions really out of thin air to avoid a financial collapse from the pandemic, right? And then inflation goes wild. And then they sell these bonds and all this. The Fed start raising interest rates to fight inflation, which they caused.
Yeah.
And then the financial collapse begins, right? Because some of these companies have all their wealth or their money stored up in these bonds. They go down, they're losing value. And then if they print, they're going to have to print more money at some point to keep this thing alive, right? I mean, it's not something where they just, where's the money coming from otherwise? I don't see it coming from anywhere. I know that they're placing, we'll get into the reasons here.
We're not even at the joke part yet. We're not even at the punchline, Guns. We need to go check out Joe Biden to get the actual punchline of this thing.
We do. But it's just one of those things where if the Fed prints more money, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they print more money, they risk of more inflation. If they do nothing, they risk collapse of the entire thing. So it's like, wow, okay, what do we do here? Don't worry, though. We got Joe to save us. I clipped this presser from this morning, Joe coming in telling us about the whole situation here. And I included his entrance because his entrance, I think, says more than his words per se. But here we go. Here he is walking in the door. Looks a little confused.
Old man shuffle.
Ooh, slam that door. Walk over to the podium. Here we go.
Before I leave for California, I want to briefly speak about what's happening in Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Last week, when we learned of the problems of the banks and the impact they could have on jobs of small businesses and banking system overall, I instructed my team to act quickly to protect these interests. They've done that. On Friday, the government regulator in charge, the FDIC, took control of Silicon Valley Bank's assets. And over the weekend, it took control of Signature Bank's assets. Treasury Secretary Yellen and a team of banking regulators have taken action, immediate action. And here are the highlights. First, all customers who had deposits in these banks can rest assured they'll be protected and they'll have access to their money as of today. Second, the management of these banks will be fired. Third, investors in the banks will not be protected. They knowingly took a risk, and when the risk didn't pay off, investors lose their money. That's how capitalism works. And fourth, there are important questions of how these banks got into the circumstance in the first place. We must get the full accounting of what happened and why those responsible can be held accountable. Look, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you, we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed on top of all this.
More bureaucracy, please.
Yeah. I think he said what he needed to say. Yeah. That's what people wanted to hear, that everybody's money is safe and that everybody's getting fired and the shareholders don't get any money.
Right.
Now, the answer to this can be found over at federalreserve.gov. Mm-hmm. And this is a press release, March 12th, 2023. Federal Reserve Board announces it will make available additional funding to eligible depository institutions to help assure banks have the ability to meet the needs of all their depositors. Mm-hmm. Long story short, what they are putting into action is a program where banks can get loans from the Fed by putting up their U.S. Treasury bonds as collateral.
Wait, is that the same bonds they just bought from them that went down in value that they had to sell? Or the ones that they didn't sell?
The bonds that the Fed sold them in 2021 and they said was going to be worth a whole bunch, and now they're completely trash. And the Fed is saying, yes, you can put up those trash bonds as collateral and we'll lend you money for a year. Now, depending on if those loans have interest rates or not, what you have is the Federal Reserve set up a situation in which they encouraged banks to purchase bonds. Then, through actions of the Federal Reserve, the Fed decreased the value of those bonds by raising interest rates and then offered so generously to give loans on those bonds again for banks who need cash. So you have the Federal Reserve over the course of 3 years creating a situation in which they are basically selling this. It is the wildest, most ingenious, controlled demolition of, a traditional store of value and double double charging on the the dumb banks who thought they were doing the right thing. It is an incredible scam that we see taking place. And they're expected to be thanked for it.
Well, especially if it's 0% interest. Oh, they're doing it out of their heart, the love they have for the banks. But yeah,
Sure,
I mean, if you wanted to paint the picture very crudely, it's as if, let's say, I really wanted to sell you this rock, Basil. It's $100. Buy this rock. It's the best rock.
Yeah.
It'll preserve your wealth. It'll, whatever. So you buy the rock from me for $100, and then I go on a campaign to talk about how that rock is worth nothing. And so
me specifically
go out and I devalue that rock, so it's $80. And then now you're in trouble. You're like, my money's all disappearing because of this rock that you told me was going to be $100. Now it's worth $80. What am I going to do? And I come in and say, hey, Basil, if you let me borrow that rock, I'll give you some more money.
Give you some more money and just pay you some interest on it. Yeah, it's this weird thing where these
so crazy.
U.S. bonds are, I mean, they were already sort of.
It was a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a crazy thing. And so whenever you see these news organizations or the government coming out and talking about SVB being irresponsible, look, y'all know me, folks. I'm not here to defend bankers. Right. But the facts of this show that the government's basically scammed the banks. Now, there's two other banks that are in trouble right now.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own story. Each bank kind of has their own story.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say this about everybody's situation, but as far as SVB, as far as I, not a professional economist, can tell, the government basically ran a scam on banks. Maybe that's cool. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. It sure got everybody freaked out, though.
Well, it's,
CNN, it's really fun. You got to see. You just type in like SVB updates on Google, and it'll take you to CNN Business Live Updates, the latest on Silicon Valley bank collapse. And it's just kind of a Q&A. It's the latest one is, no, you shouldn't pull all your money out of the bank. Here are answers to other key questions.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Do I have to worry about cash stored in my bank? And it talks about the FDIC insurance. Should I pull my money out of my bank? No, it doesn't make any sense to take all your money out of the bank. Jay Hatfield, CEO at Infrastructure Capital Advisors.
Please don't take all your money out of the bank, especially all at the same time right now. Ugh.
Yeah, that is. You've got the full system, the full sort of cooperative system of the media and the banking sector and the government all working together to make sure that nobody panics and doesn't completely destroy the system.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing that I hope people that haven't realized it yet do realize as more of this starts to happen, is that it's all a game of trust. It's all a game of, it's all illusory, it's really not, they don't have true authority or power. They just seem like they do. So I don't know. It's an interesting time. Because you know what markets are rallying with all this, Basil?
Generator companies, freeze-dried food companies.
Yeah, probably all that stuff too. But also
companies.
Also, ironically enough,
Bitcoin go to moon.
Bitcoin is pumping right now.
Is this a crypto? I look like I know what a crypto is.
And there is a thread with all of these banks that has to do with crypto, and we won't get into it on this show.
Real quick,
other shows talking about it. Yeah.
This is a wonderful time for any crypto people out there to put into plan your self-custody strategy here.
Yes.
If you're keeping your crypto on Coinbase, which had some money in Signature Bank,
240 million, I think.
Yeah, so Coinbase got a little shaky. Circle got a little shaky. A lot of the crypto companies did get a little shaky. Some theorize that crypto companies got kind of targeted in this thing, but who knows?
Self-custody.
Self-custody is the way to go. You can get a hardware wallet. Don't keep it in an app. Keep it in your own thing. Go do it right now. Don't wait to do it. Do it while you're listening to the show.
Yeah.
Ledger is a good one. Do you have any? This is actually practical advice.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite hardware wallet?
No, I use the Ledger Nano.
Yeah, Ledger Nano is what I got.
I also have paper wallets, which you can create offline. So
get it out of just get it out of apps right now.
Yeah.
If you keep it in an app, it's not yours.
Yeah, not your keys, not your coins is a very popular saying in the crypto world, and that's because if you control your private keys to your Bitcoin, you control it. You're kind of your own bank in a sense. I know that's kind of scary for some people, but that's really what it is. And especially in this situation, it really does show. Oh, why is that important? Well, because stuff like this can happen. Your bank fails and you don't have money, or unless the government steps in. I did think that, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but do you remember a couple years ago, Jack Ma disappeared and Chinese tech industry hit like a ceiling, right? It was like all these CEOs started backing out, and some of these big corporations went under, and there was a big change of hands, and everything went more towards government control. And I feel like the hand that did that is also doing this. I'm not even saying it's China or the CCP specifically. I'm saying somebody, usually it's beyond that. We've talked about that with the, whatever you want to call it, or the principalities and powers, the elites, whatever. But it's very similar in tone, where it's kind of a systematic teardown, of a whole, and with tech specifically, especially tied with crypto, because I think what they're trying to do is get rid of all the fiat on and off ramps to crypto, or any banks that are involved in it, to allow the government to step in and create their own version of either a stable coin, or they've got the Fed Now thing coming up. But it's all about CBDCs. And, really, we've talked about CBDCs. Everybody kind of knows about it. And it's not very popular all around the world. And this is going to be interesting to see how they establish and create more crisis moments to, create the atmosphere for people to want CBDCs. It's like, we got to have it if we're going to maintain the system the way we want it to,
Those are central bank digital currencies.
Central bank digital currencies. I have Yahoo Finance here mirroring CoinDesk, and the headline, Nigerians reject their CBDC, is a cautionary tale for other countries. So we know Africa, there were a lot of the CBDC stuff is well underway in Africa, and especially Nigeria. They're trying to push for a 100% cashless economy, but the citizens are not having it. There's a lot of pushback on that. So, it's you can see what worst case scenario the way things can unfold here, as as these things continue to happen. There's a subheadline: you can't legislate a change in behavior, and so this is all about population control when it comes to CBDCs. And then we have the Financial Times reporting, Financial Times being very closely associated with the intelligence agencies. Central banks' digital currency plans face public backlash. Policymakers attempt to take on cryptocurrencies and other payment rivals are coming up against resistance. So again, it's this whole sort of economic warfare taking place, a cyber economy warfare. U.S. critics deride it as the Biden coin. Europeans worry their privacy is at risk, while in China, few are prepared to ditch tried and tested payment apps for the state-backed equivalent. About 85 central banks are engaged in projects to create digital currencies, according to figures from the Bank of International Settlements. Among them is the Bank of England, which said that last month it was likely that the UK would eventually need one. And finally, I have let me skip the South Dakota governor moves to block CBDC bill that excludes crypto asset from definition of money. There is a legislative battle going on in the U.S. right now. The U.S. is really far behind on a lot of clarity when it comes to crypto, and I think it's because they didn't say anything because they wanted it to fall apart, like we saw with FTX and Celsius and Three Arrows Capital and all that stuff. But I think that was also part of a long-term teardown of perhaps, or at least a shakeup of some of the traditional banking systems. Ford Advisor here. The Fed is rewiring the U.S. payment system. Here's what it means for you. And this article, I think, really is the bigger takeaway, apart from the specifics of this whole banking crisis that we're seeing here. The Federal Reserve plans to launch its own real-time payment system called the FedNow service this summer. Though FedNow is years behind tech-based private sector competitors, it will be a game changer for transactions in the U.S. It will be the first and only digital instant payment system that is both created and backed by the government. As a result, many banks will see it as a larger, safer system able to transfer money faster for consumer and businesses. Oh, relying on the government for a safer system. Basil, sounds a lot like buying government treasury bonds, doesn't it?
Safety.
FedNow will enable all the banks, any banks in the U.S., not just the big ones, to offer instantly available funds and real-time payments to their customers, said Fed Chair Jerome Powell, before the House Financial Services Committee on March 8th. It's a great thing. Aren't you excited for FedNow? They initially had set the launch for 2024, but they're rolling it out there quicker because they need it. It needs to happen sooner. So that's what we got to look forward to. And, again, it really does bring up the question of all the things that your sort of libertarian crypto people have been ranting about for about a decade, which is, number one, what is money? What is freedom? What are your rights when it comes to money? Things like that. So all the philosophical monetary questions laid out for all of us to work out. And I think the government has a plan to provide a solution to this problem. And it'll be up to us whether we go with it, just let them do what they want with it, or push back. And this is where, man, I talked about how crypto and just monetary stuff is going to become very political. And I think we're seeing that now, especially with the FTX type of stuff. I wanted to mention Thomas Massie. He's a congressman for, I think, Kentucky. And I listened to him in a Twitter Spaces the other day, which is crazy for a congressman to be hanging out in a Twitter Spaces and talking to the people and doing all this. And he actually tweeted out on March 12th. He said, just got off a Zoom meeting with Fed, Treasury, FDIC, House, and Senate. A Democrat senator essentially asked whether there was a program in place to censor information on social media that could lead to a run on the banks. So,
Yay.
Of course, control the messaging the Democrats want. But for Thomas Massie, it was really interesting to listen to him talk about how slow the government moves and how there's probably not a whole lot that's going to change in the near future in terms of laws, but that, it's easier to take away laws than to actually, create new ones. And he also appealed, and this will be the last thing. I noticed that after he got off the call, there was a bunch of liberal, left-leaning Democrats and the progressive types in the Twitter Spaces, and they were all very impressed with him. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this guy! I don't agree with his politics, but he's open for conversation and he wants to learn from us, and I have a lot of respect for him." And I'm going, "Wow, we live in a crazy time where all of a sudden, lefty progressive types are talking about Republican congressmen as like, hey, that guy sounds like a cool guy, and this whole money thing. And when it comes to shaking up government and perception and everything, the economy can kind of bring everybody together in a sense. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But, I think this whole thing, like you mentioned, is a controlled demolition of certain parts of the infrastructure because, and I've heard people say, hey, there's a great awakening taking place. The great reset's not going to happen because there's too many people awake now. And my whole thing is like, are you guys, I want to smoke what you guys are smoking, because the fourth industrial revolution, as outlined by Klaus Schwab, means that all infrastructure from the third industrial revolution is going to be systematically torn down. Mm-hmm. And that includes banks. So we should expect to see more chaos, turmoil, more traditional infrastructure having problems. And, I'm not comfortable with the government stepping in to save and bail out these banks. Partially because I get it. It's people's family, whatever, the depositors that are being made whole, not necessarily the investors. But it does sort of just give the government more authority when it comes to this stuff. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, Proverbs 22, verse 7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. So There you go.
And things like this, of course, with all eyes on the same story, the whole world talking about SVB right now. You gotta wonder what is going on that is not having attention drawn to it today. Announcements were made. I've got CBSNews.com here. Pentagon's $842 billion budget focuses on China with lessons from Ukraine war. We've got, yes, of course, another biggest, procurement budget.
Why don't we have Zelensky bail us out? Some of these banks out. That's a drop in the bucket for him. He's got billions over there, man.
12% increase in budget for munitions, 40% increase in budget for Pacific Deterrence Initiative.
Oh, good.
Very China-focused. The Chinese spy balloon incident, though it occurred late in the budget request process, did inspire some additional funding.
Of course it did.
For improving sensors and analysis at altitude.
About funding,
Overall, the $842 billion budget request is 3.2, so close, increase over the budget enacted for fiscal year.
You and I would make an excellent consulting organization to help these people out. Because we really know we see the other side of the game, so it's kind of like we can help them craft a more subtle way to market this stuff. But you just got to send them invoices. If they pay the invoices, we'll give them our knowledge. So there you go. Keep an eye out for all the other important things going on, not just in the world, but in your life, folks. This shoe shall pass. This
shoe shall pass. And with that, let's take a little break. Have a little party.
Go to canarycry.party. Put it in your URL. There you will find a tree of links to everything from where to watch the show, listen to the show, how to connect with us and the community.
Welcome to Canary Cry Party. It's the place you wanna be. So say welcome to Canary Cry. Gameplay
That's right. Go check it out. All sorts of great stuff there, including you can sign up for our text message alerts. You can go to canarycry.party, sign up there, or text the message, text the word canary to 877-740-3226. We'll send out a little message before every show so you never miss a show. And with that, let's thank some producers.
It's break time! Come on, take a break.
That's right. It's value for value, folks. No corporate money here. Silently deciding the risks that we take or don't take, manipulating our feelings about the risk-benefit analysis of giving our true thoughts about the news, about the economics of the world, about the wars. No. We are produced by our producers, and that's you, people who get value from the show. It's a very simple concept, folks, which is there's no corporation keeping us alive. We only stay alive when people who receive value from the show put value back in. And that can be with your time, your talent, or your treasure. Lots of ways to do it. So all things considered, keep in mind, what would your life be like without Canary Cry? Do you get value? Do you not get value? Taking part in the value for value model, it feels like almost a... I don't know. Not only does it connect me and us with the people who are directly benefiting from the show, but it feels like there's a connection with reality a little bit more, because in reality, that's what should decide if a show lives or dies. Does it bring value to people's lives or does it not? For too long, the whole media industry, it doesn't even matter if it's bringing value to people. It's whether or not it's bringing value to corporations. Yeah. Do corporations get value? And I'll tell you this, I cannot name a single corporation that gets value from this show. So it is up to the human beings who listen to this show to put value back in. Lots of ways to do it. We're going to thank some producers who came in with their finances to help us keep the lights on. So let's do that now.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Short list. No supply droppers, no t-shirt people, and regular producers. Here we go. We got producer Morgan E. He's on a 4-episode streak now.
Thank you, Morgan E.
Thank you, Morgan E. We've got Sir Moore of Night of the Burning Chariots, 204 episodes in a row, 11-11.
204.
Oh, yeah, Streakalicious.
Thank you, Sir Morv.
And we have Sir Alex Protocol V2, Night of the Brain Protocol, pocket full of 7s. 147 episodes in a row.
Thank you, Sir Alex Protocol V2.
And I think that's it.
Wow.
Just 3. I'm doing a little quick reload here, see if anybody came in during the show. Very much. Morgan E., Sir Morv, and Sir Alex Protocol V2.
Okay.
That concludes the list of people who supported the show in the amount of $7.77 or more, which entitles them to have a note read on the show. We appreciate that. There's some people here that came in under that amount, and we'll thank them now, starting with Dame Gale, Canary Whisperer, and Lady of X's and O's.
Thank you, Dame Gale.
Oh,
Dame Gale had a note
230.
too. I don't know if you want to talk about her. I know it's under 777, but it was about the.
Where's the note?
It was from a last episode, but it was about her Gale's grab bag. I think she wanted to bring it up to us. Maybe we do some stuff in the back and then we'll bring it back.
Was this a note to be read on the show?
I don't think
was
so.
This
I think it was. I think I couldn't tell. You know, it's Dame Gale. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But we'll talk about it. We'll get back to you, Dame Gale, on all that stuff. So just wanted to let you know we got the message.
Take a look and see what it is. Thank you very much, Dame Gale, Canary Whisperer, the Lady of X's and O's. Next up, we got Sir Casey, the Shield Knight, 272 episodes in a row.
Thank you, Sir Casey.
We got Veronica D, 234.
Thank you, Veronica D.
Doctor Who Done That, 36.
Thank you, Doctor Who Done That.
Sir Scott, Knight of Truth, 261.
Thank you, Sir Scott, Knight of Truth. And
yes.
That's a lot.
Oh, yeah, Streakalicious. Women rule.
There you go.
Indeed. Okay, that's it. Thanks, everybody, for supporting the show. Means a lot to us. You can head on over to canarycry.support or canarycryradio.com/support or canarycry.party to figure out how to put some value back into the system. We'll have some other producers with their time and their talent later on in the show. But thank you for your patronage.
Canarycry.support. Shut up and take my money. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your patronage.
Yes, it's wake up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
It's Corona time. COVID-19, COVID-19, COVID-19.
COVID-19.
COVID-19. COVID-19. Coronavirus. Vaccine. Number one way.
Yeah.
Fun series of events here.
I guess. I don't know. I'm not as excited about this as you are.
I don't know about excited, but it's always nice to see things heading in the right direction. It seems like the whole tide has been moving in at least a preferable direction here for some time now.
Sure.
And one big sort of stepping stone in this comes from ABC.com. The headline, House votes to declassify info about origins of COVID-19. The House voted unanimously Friday to declassify U.S. intelligence information about the origins of COVID-19, a sweeping show of bipartisan support near the third anniversary of the start of the deadly pandemic. Now, it's kind of suspicious that it's unanimous.
Unanimous. 419 to 0.
Yes.
Wow.
Any unanimous vote going on in Washington is by definition suspicious. Now, of course, at first glance, you can be like, yes, of course, because we all want to know where it came from. That shouldn't be a secret. Well, there's a lot of people who do think it should be a secret. So it does make you wonder, do they have a plan to, I don't know, maybe characterize the intelligence information in a beneficial way or what? But that is the news, folks. Unanimously voted. Now, some fun little things in this article here. The 419-0 vote was final congressional approval of the bill, sending it to President Joe Biden's desk.
Oh, boy.
Oh, so one last step here. It's unclear whether the president will sign the measure into law.
Oh, come on, Joe.
The White House said the matter was under review.
Need time.
That would be
time. Just sign it.
That would be quite the zag if it's like unanimous votes. Everybody wants release the investigation, release the intelligence. And he's like, no, I don't think I will. No, I don't like it. Quote,
minority.
I haven't made that decision yet. Yeah. Quote, I haven't made that decision yet, Biden said late Friday when asked whether he would sign the bill. Debate in the House was brief and to the point. Americans have questions about how the deadly virus started and what can be done to prevent future outbreaks. Quote, the American public deserves answers to every aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic, said Representative Michael Turner, Republican from Ohio, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. That includes, he said, quote, how this virus was created, and specifically whether it was a natural occurrence or was the result of a lab-related event. He did say how it was created. The order to declassify focused on intelligence related to China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, citing potential links between the research that was done there and the outbreak of COVID-19, which the World Health Organization declared a pandemic on March 11th, 2020. U.S. intelligence agencies are divided over whether the lab leak or a spillover from animals is the likely source of the deadly virus. Experts say the true origin of the coronavirus pandemic, which has killed more than 1 million Americans, may not be known for many years, if ever. Quote, transparency is a cornerstone of our democracy, said Representative Jim Himes of Connecticut, the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee during the debate. Led by Republicans, the focus on the virus origins comes as the House launched a select committee with a hearing earlier in the week delving into theories about how the pandemic started. It offers a rare moment of bipartisanship, despite the often heated rhetoric about the origins of the coronavirus and the questions about the response to the virus by U.S. health officials, including former top health advisor Anthony Fauci. The legislation from Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, was already approved by the Senate. Hawley urged Biden to sign the bill into law. Quote, the American people deserve to know the truth, he said in a statement. If signed into law, the measure would require within 90 days the declassification of, quote, any and all information relating to potential links between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origin of the coronavirus disease. That includes information about research and other activities at the lab and whether any researchers grew ill. So, obviously, the focus here is on the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That is sort of it's brought up multiple times. It's specifically potential links. That is the intelligence, the information. You know, I could see on the left or the right whether you believe it was a lab leak or not. You know, of course, you would want the intelligence out there in order to prove your point on either side. So the unanimity there kind of makes a little sense. But Anthony Fauci, named by name, about, you know, in the same paragraph as the heated rhetoric about the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, he's pretty much the only one who is still pushing for the natural origins theory. And CNN had him on to talk about it. So in the light of knowing that the intelligence is probably going to be declassified and available for everybody. Let's see what Anthony Fauci has to say about the lab leak theory versus the natural origins.
Yeah. And just as I mentioned here, I did chop off the answer to his first question, or the first part of the clip here, because he was talking about how evolutionary biologists published a study, and that study clearly showed that it came from a market or whatever. So, but Jim Acosta,
natural origins,
Jim Acosta trying to make sense of the lab leak.
And on this theory of a lab leak, I've been wondering this. Do we have any idea how that would even work?
How would a lab leak even work?
Have you heard any accounts as to how that might have happened? Is there speculation in the scientific community as to how that happened?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jim. So one of the things that people maybe don't fully appreciate, that all of the intelligence agencies agree unanimously that this was not engineered. Namely, they didn't deliberately do this to make a bioweapon. Everybody.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true.
So that's one part of his answer. Is he says they unanimously agree that it wasn't engineered. No, they didn't say that. He says, or they say, that they don't think it was a bioweapon, that it was weaponized or something. And
science is truth.
That you can say, but he misspoke there, I believe.
Do you think he misspoke, or you think he's doing deliberate misdirection?
I think
just trying to build a straw man
on
over here.
YouTube. I think that he misspoke.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Neil, he misspoke.
Engineered. Namely, they didn't deliberately do this to make a bioweapon. Everybody agrees with that. No matter what your prior thoughts were, everybody agrees with that. A lab leak could be that someone was out in the wild, maybe looking for different types of viruses in bats, got infected, went into a lab, and was being studied in a lab, and then it came out of the lab. But if that's the definition of a lab leak, Jim, then that still is a natural occurrence. The other possibility is...
Hold on,
a lab leak? Yeah, it might be a lab leak, but a lab leak is still natural origin. It's such a brilliant speaker, isn't he? He's just going to be right no matter what happens.
You know,
it could be a lab leak if somebody goes out and finds the coronavirus and comes and puts it in a lab, and then they study it there, and then it gets out of the lab. Then it's a lab leak and a natural origins, okay? I've stuck by this for 3 years now. I'm retired. I'm not going to give it up because I'm not an evil villain, okay?
Yeah, that's really unbelievable. That the ability for him to rationalize his position here. This is, he got paid the big bucks to do this, so I guess he's still on his game.
He's seeing the writing on the wall.
Jim, then that still is a natural occurrence. The other possibility is someone takes a virus from the environment that doesn't actually spread very well in humans and manipulates it a bit, and accidentally it escapes or accidentally infects someone, and then you get an outbreak. Those are the possibilities when you're talking about lab leaks.
But are there any accounts of that occurring where one might say, okay, well, there we go. Perhaps this is it. This is what happened.
No.
That you're aware of.
In fact, there are no lab leaks.
Pause it for a second. What was the exact question again? Are there any occurrences of a lab leak? Is that what he says?
Yeah, let me play it again.
Play it again.
From the environment that doesn't actually spread very well in humans and manipulate it, and accidentally it escapes or accidentally infects someone, and then you get an outbreak. Those are the possibilities when you're talking about lab leaks.
But are there any accounts of that occurring where one might say, okay, well, there we go. Perhaps this is it. This is what happened.
Are there any accounts of a lab leak? He's just asking, have there ever been any lab leaks? That is the question.
Yeah.
Now let's hear the answer.
No.
That you're aware of.
In fact, there are no lab leaks that have led to pandemics. So there have been...
Wait a minute. Does that mean there have been lab leaks, Fauci?
So the question wasn't, have there been lab leaks that leads to pandemics?
Right.
That wasn't the question. The question was, have there ever been any lab leaks? He says no. and obviously immediately sees a problem he needs to talk himself out of. And so he kind of corrects himself and says, there have not been any lab leaks that lead to pandemics. Right. Okay. Well,
Sure.
since we haven't had any pandemics for 100 years before the coronavirus pandemic, okay. But he continues.
Accidents in a lab, that happens intermittently. We've had experiences with that in modern times recently. But there have
wait a minute. So wait, like in Wuhan, or what are you talking about, Fauci? Can you source that for us?
He's got a great answer. Yeah. So there have not been any lab leaks that cause pandemics. No,
contradicts himself.
Sometimes there's accidents, and this has happened
That's
recently.
what a lab leak would be. He just that's the scenario he just gave. Some kind of accident.
Exactly.
That it would
keep it going again.
Oh gosh,
gets better.
Well, maybe don't.
You're aware of.
In fact, there are no lab leaks that have led to pandemics. So there have been accidents in a lab that happens intermittently. We've had experiences with that in modern times recently. But there have never been a situation where a virus escaped from a lab that's a brand new virus that no one has ever seen before that led to a pandemic. That has not happened.
So look how specific that is.
That's very specific.
There's never been
a brand new
that nobody's ever seen before that escaped from a lab that started a pandemic. That has never happened before. And it's fun because it's like, okay, just because something has never happened before, it doesn't mean that it's impossible.
First time for everything.
Just on its face.
Fauci.
I'm just saying, just everybody can agree. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it can't happen. Right. But again, when it comes to lab leak or natural origin, the masterful rhetorical martial artistry that is Anthony Fauci, equating a lab leak with natural origin. You can have both. It can be a natural origin lab leak.
It's all semantics, how you define it.
I've just been, he's been the one who's been redefining these types of terms for a long time. And he's right. We just saw him live workshop.
He does have a brilliant mind.
He's live workshopping, redefining lab leak to mean natural origin, or natural origin to mean lab leak.
It came from a lab, but originally it came from nature.
Yeah, accidents, we have them all the time.
Tony, you can say that about anything, can't you? Mm-hmm. Pretty much anything. Right. Anything that's out in the wild, if it goes into a lab, that it came from the nature. And then it went to a lab, and then it came.
He sees the writing on the wall. He sees the House is unanimously voted to release the intelligence. He sees it coming. He knows it's coming. He never thought this day would come. So now he's having to retrospectively change the meaning of every time that he has said it was natural origins for the past 3 years.
Yeah, I think you have a point there. But I'm curious if, this is, I don't know, there's a lot of different layers to this, but, if Fauci wanted some kind of, out, some kind of escape hatch from all this, why wouldn't he go all in on China messed it up, and I'm surprised he hasn't done that yet. And I think it's because
his paychecks.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He funded a bunch of it, so it's kind of and it's not gonna work.
It's his legacy.
Also, I think I don't think it's any good for Fauci anyway. But I think even if the declassifying, obviously if Joe says okay and things get released, do you know how much stuff is going to be redacted in those documents? We're hardly going to know anything about stuff unless they politically or strategically want certain information to get out, to become a talking point for division or for war or whatever. I don't know. I'm not really hopeful that we're going to learn much from
I'm not very optimistic about it.
Yeah.
And he's no longer even required to like show up at court
why is
if he gets called in, because he's retired now.
Yeah, this is Fauci's hand going into the lava. It's a last ditch effort at holding on to some kind of integrity, maybe. But okay, we also have this Reuters article. You want to tell us about the Moderna thing, which is kind of funny?
Yeah, sure. This is a fun little note here. Yeah, coming from Reuters. Let's see here. Moderna loses bid to shift liability in COVID-19 vaccine patent case.
Okay.
Despite the backing of the U.S. government, Moderna Inc. on Friday failed to persuade a federal judge it should not have to face a patent lawsuit over its COVID-19 vaccine, and that the United States should have been sued instead.
I love this. So the courts basically said, no, Moderna, you can be tried as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. U.S. District Judge Mitchell Goldberg ruled for the second time that Moderna had not yet shown that the government was the proper target of a lawsuit by Arbutus Biopharma Corp. And Genevant Sciences GmbH. A spokesperson for Genevant declined to comment on the decision. Representatives for Moderna, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services did not immediately respond for requests for comment on Friday. Warminster Township, Pennsylvania-based Arbutus and Genevant, sorry, these names are crazy, a joint venture between Arbutus and Roivant Sciences, sued Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Moderna for patent infringement last year, seeking royalties from Moderna's multi-billion-dollar COVID vaccines. So, just for review, the U.S. taxpayers paid for Moderna to invent a vaccine for COVID. Yeah. That's our money that was given to Moderna to create the vaccine. And it looks like they may have allegedly just stolen the vaccine from Arbutus Genevant, or at least a part of it. Moderna asked the court to dismiss the case last May. It said the United States was the proper target of the claims because the company...
That's what's funny. Moderna's like, the government made us do it. The government did it, and the courts are like, you were complicit too there.
Well, Moderna. See, that's the fun part. It says the United States was the proper target of the claim because the company made its vaccine for the government's nationwide vaccination effort, citing a law that was previously used to keep patent disputes from interfering with the supply of war materials during World War I. Goldberg first ruled against Moderna in November. He said Moderna had not yet shown that the shots were made, quote, for the government, and that the government may have been an, quote, incidental beneficiary instead. The U.S., this is the crazy part. Okay, so U.S. taxpayers paid Moderna to make a vaccine. Yeah. Moderna may or may not have just stolen it from somebody else. And then when getting sued, Moderna is saying that the U.S. government should be the one getting sued.
Didn't Moderna worked with the NIH on this product, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other lawsuits surrounding it regarding
people's
individual scientists and stuff like that.
There was that gal who was trying to get on the patent list and she was denied, I think.
I believe she was. Here's the crazy part. The U.S. Justice Department said in a court filing last month that it supports Moderna's position, arguing that the company should not be liable for shots provided under its contract with the government as part of Operation Warp Speed. The government is like, hey, settle down, everybody. Hey, don't sue Moderna. Don't sue Moderna. Sue me. Sue me. I'm the government. It was all me.
Why don't you pick on someone your own size?
Pick on someone your own size. Hey, you messing with my buddy Moderna? Hey. You don't have a problem with Moderna. You don't got a problem with Moderna. You got a problem with me, buddy. Come, bring it on.
That is funny. The government is sort of like playing daddy to Moderna. Yeah. That is hilarious.
Yeah. They are. It shows the inseparable corruption of big pharma and our government. Our government, the U.S. Justice Department, is trying to take the heat for Moderna, taking all this tax money, and then on top of taking all the tax money, charging for the vaccine that they made with our tax money. But then on top of that, allegedly stole the vaccine, didn't even use the tax money in the way that it was supposed to be. I mean, that's a pretty good deal as for, for Moderna. Get a bunch of tax money, steal the product from somebody else, sell the product that you stole back to the people who gave you the money in the first place, and then also be completely protected from lawsuits. It's a really good deal. Goldberg ruled Friday that Moderna's request was still premature and said details were still emerging about the scope of the company's government agreements. And let's see here. That's it. That ends. So pretty fun thing. I don't know how much this liability case will affect precedent in the future with other types of liability cases, because of course there's several different aspects of liability that will be coming into question when it comes to the past 3 years, and we will see what happens. But it's always nice to see that a big pharma company is not protected from the law in one instance. Just one is totally fine. That's a total win.
Yeah. Last thing here from the COVID pandemic vaccine segment here. This is from the New York Times. It's an opinion piece, and it's titled, How to Prepare for the Next Pandemic. We're hearing a lot about the next pandemic. There's a few things to point out from this article. It says, and it's written by Thomas Inglesby. I think that's how you say it. Inglesby, director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and an expert in pandemic preparedness. And he says here, late last year, I participated in an exercise meant to play out what might happen if the world was presented with a new disease spreading quickly with no warning. The exercise revolved around a number of simulated emergency meetings of the World Health Organization Advisory Board, called in response to a very serious new pandemic, a risk that the WHO refers to as Disease X.
We've talked about disease. They're running another tabletop game.
Yeah, well, he's talking about how, we've reported on this. This is a guy that was there. He was in the weeds doing the actual exercises. He says some of the smartest and most experienced international public health leaders had differing, sometimes opposing views on many fundamental questions about the response. Should they shut down travel in the earliest days? Should they close schools in the first affected countries? If a future pandemic has a much higher case fatality rate than COVID, or if it severely affected children, should countries take different, stronger, faster measures to contain it? Top experts don't agree yet. And there's some interesting things that are admitted here. During the peak of the Omicron wave in January 2022, U.S. congressional leaders across the political spectrum were frustrated by the need to transform the country's pandemic response. Quote, "We can never let this happen again," was a frequent refrain. But a year later, and 3 years after COVID was declared a pandemic, that collective resolve is diminished. The promise to prepare for pandemics is fundamentally new, far more ambitious ways has rapidly faded. As horrible as COVID has been, it remains one of the leading causes of death in the United States, which is a questionable thing there. It is not the worst case scenario. New York Times saying that the COVID pandemic was not a worst case scenario.
Yeah,
it's kind of big because they've been basically saying this is the worst thing that can ever happen for like 3 years.
Yeah.
There are viruses with case fatality rates 10 times or even greater than that of COVID, such as H5N1, Nipah, and Ebola. Fortunately, those viruses have not developed the capacity for efficient human-to-human respiratory spread yet. A concern is whether a new viral strain with higher case fatality will also develop the capacity for rapid spread among people. There is a growing global concern over H5N1 spread in animals, a development that governments must track and prepare for, and which all the more should broadly spur vigorous new pandemic preparedness efforts. The world needs to be prepared for the next disease X, something capable of causing global catastrophic risks. Here's what it would take to collect all we learned from COVID and to transform our preparedness. Okay, so we got some points here. I'm not going to read through everything, but just some of the big ones that this guy thinks is important. Number one, we need to get vaccines in arms much faster than what we've already, much faster. The number of countries, a number of countries call this commitment the 100-day mission, referring to the number of days it should take to develop a safe, effective vaccine after the sequencing of a novel pandemic virus. Man, this is the whole mRNA thing, but prior to COVID-19, it was well understood that vaccines take 7 years, 6 or 7 years,
4 to 7 years
for proper trials and all kinds of stuff. But because of the pandemic, now we got 100 days. We don't have shots in arms in 100 days. We are not prepared for disease X.
Yeah, as all those virologists said the whole time, you always vaccinate during a pandemic. Vaccinate your way out of the pandemic. That's what all those crazy virologists told us.
Oh my gosh. And what's funny is they sort of, it's as part of a government pitch, it's always about funding, right? So they talk about the mRNA technologies, and then they say right now a large majority of government funding to help develop vaccines and medicines for pandemics is for existing known pathogens as opposed to preparing for future unknowns. So you see, we don't know what the future has in store for us, so give us more money. Then it gets less and less, inflammatory, but it does become more and more, stuff that we were talking about. Number two, we need to make it much easier to develop and distribute tests. Okay? There's questions about if it's even valid, but all right. We need a stronger stockpile of high-quality protective gear. Ask Gavin Newsom how that $1 billion investment to a Chinese automaker company is going. To that made us all those masks, that are supposed to help us. Okay. We need to seriously change our approach to indoor air quality. All right. Another talking point, during the pandemic of, hey, if you got good airflow, you're good. No, 6 feet apart. Wear your mask indoors. But now it's just we need better ventilation systems. The next one, we need stronger research oversight and lab safety. We need oversight about lab safety, especially because, Anthony Fauci just said that, lab leak they happen periodically, None have led to pandemics, but apparently
even recently.
Recently things like this happen. So we should have some kind of lab safety oversight, which is hilarious because there's already stuff in place. And this article specifically never mentions the lab leaks. They talk about lab safety, but they steer clear of any talk of lab leaks, which I thought was very sneaky. And I won't read through all of it here. But the big kicker here, this surprised me, or maybe not, I don't know. The CDC needs a reset.
Oh.
New York Times saying in an op-ed, albeit, that the CDC needs a reset. Did you ever think that the New York Times would print those words?
No,
I guess
that's very fun.
It makes sense in the Great Reset context, right? Like I mentioned earlier, everything's going to fail. And I think part of the COVID thing was to show the systemic problems with our medical institutions and really our governmental arms of that nature. It says here the CDC has essential national pandemic preparedness and response responsibilities as the nation's top national public health agency, but the pandemic revealed many of its challenges, including early testing mishaps, complicated public guidance, and an inability to collect some key data that national leaders and the public needed. The agency needs new authorities to gather data quickly. I don't know about that. New abilities to contract, retain, and recruit talent, and new capacity to deploy people and funding to state and local public health organizations around the country that will need that assistance. The CDC needs to operate rapidly in crisis, both in the U.S. and internationally. Currently, its budget is broken into about 160 programs that aren't allowed to be changed during pandemics. This must change. Some changes are in the CDC's control. Others will require legislative solutions like giving it more authority and funding.
Oh, good.
So isn't that sneaky how they're like, oh, the CDC needs reset. What kind of reset? They need more funding and authority. See,
well,
it's like, what? Oh, come on, man.
Right. Yeah. You remember those. It was probably, what was that? Maybe mid 2022 or early. I think it was early 22, late 21.
Started talking about how the CDC messaging was failing or something and how they needed better PR and all that.
Oh, no. They were full on having conversations about in Congress. They were having conversations about abolishing the CDC.
Yeah.
And totally getting rid of it and replacing it. Now, of course, the question is, what horrible thing do they replace it with?
Yeah.
But it was much like the unanimous COVID,
the
intelligence
origins,
bill.
Yeah.
It was kind of similar. People, or Congress people, senators, they were talking about, you know what, this CDC thing didn't quite work out so well. It might be worth totally getting rid of it. And of course, with the idea that they would rebuild it in some new image and give it more powers and more funding and something or other. But we haven't heard a whole lot about it for about a year. This is kind of the first time where it's getting brought back up of like, hey, this CDC thing didn't really work out the way we wanted it to.
Yeah. And this guy's remember, he's the director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. So he's not some chump talking about this stuff. But I think it's hilarious that, the CDC needs to reset. They need more money. They need more authority. That's how he would like to see the reset. Which shows that whatever is going to replace it or revamp or whatever may happen, it's not going to be good. It's going to be more data collection. It's going to be more centralization. And I'm not really hopeful that this is going to bring about any kind of goodness. Although I do think that there will be some interesting DeSci type of options being peddled for speculative investing in the future. We have DeFi, we have we're going to see D everything, right? So D as in decentralization. I think we're going to see decentralized science, and I it's all about data. So part of how we, like you and I and just everybody listening, how we might play a role in this is how we as individuals will sort of demand our rights with our data. Until we do that and we make it clear and known, nothing's really going to change at a sort of, infrastructure government level, which I don't know that it's ever supposed to, given the context of the end times and where we're at. But in terms of just the carnal battle at hand, we do need to make it clear, like, hey, this is our data. We have the rights to our data. I think we need to do that with our biology too, which is sort of the scary thing, right? That we're going to probably have to be like, hey, our biology belongs to us. You can't just take my DNA off the streets and start tinkering with it and creating some abomination in a lab.
You need some sort of legal protection.
You need the papers. You need me to sign those papers. So yeah, I don't think this is going in a good direction either way, but it is interesting that in light of the corruption, even the director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security is having to sort of lean into the idea that maybe we need to restructure some things. But of course, under the guidance of people like him, it's not going to look good anyway. So there you go. Let's prepare for the next pandemic, Basil. Are you ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
Yay. We'll do so by thanking some more producers who come in with their talent. Maybe they can help the government prepare for the next pandemic.
Break. It's break.
This is break. Don't just consume the content, but become the content. Become the content. All right, we're going to thank our producers who come in with their God-given talent. This show is always free. There is no paywall. It is free for everybody, for your parents, your dogs, outer space, whatever, or firmament, whatever you believe is up there. And if you get value out of the show, this free show with no paywall, then consider providing value back. And you can do it multiple ways with your time, talent, or treasure. We're going to thank our people who come in with their talent. And it helps us build the community. Or I always mess that up now. Helps us build the culture behind the community here at Canary Cry News Talk. And so we're going to do that now. We're going to start off with some speak pipes.
Please leave a message after the tone.
At the tone, please record your message.
Leave a message. Beep.
Message.
You can go to canarycrynewstalk.com and look for a green tab on the right side or the bottom. Click on it. It'll give you a little pop-up window that allows you to record an audio message of up to 90 seconds, and it will be sent to us, and we will either play it or not, or listen to it or not. Actually, we will listen to it probably, but yes. All right, we're going to start off with a message from Rochelle.
Hello, Canary Cry. So it's been a minute, but I got a request for Job from the chat. This was like 2 to 3 weeks ago now. Well, Job turned into a job, but here's part 1 of probably 3. Anyway, thanks for the inspiration, Canarians. You see, Job, the greatest man of the East, 7 sons, 3 daughters, claim their own day to feast. Joe intercedes for their sinful deeds early in the morning. Burnt offerings. The sons of God present themselves to the Lord. The Hasatan never gets bored, moving to and fro, high and low. With permission, he smites Job, and then inquisition, he smites again and again. This causes mass confusion. What's the good Lord doing? 7 days and 7 nights pass before the friends can even bear to ask. Okay, we end there. Stay strong for Jesus. Part 2 coming up.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, and thank you to the Canarians who inspired her. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We also have something here from Jeremy H.
Hi, guys. This is Jeremy Hicks. Wasn't really sure where to do the ask for prayer for from the producers, but just want to let you guys know that on this last Sunday, I was headed to my night church at my church, and I was riding my e-bike and only got just down the street and hit a patch of icy snow, and it threw me off at 20-something miles per hour, and I broke my right shoulder. I had surgery this last Thursday, and just been in really rough shape, being able to only use my left arm right now. I'm going to be in long time rehabilitation. I could really use your prayers. Please ask the producer to pray for me. Thanks.
All right. Well, sorry to hear about that, Jeremy.
You heard them,
man.
producers.
Producers, assemble!
That's right, producers. They're just like you because they are you. They're people who are committed to praying for the show, praying for the producers of the show. They're an elite squadron of prayer warriors all around the world. So we're putting Jeremy on the list, folks. That's a brutal one. Hit some ice on a, what was it, electric bike?
E-bike, he said, yeah.
E-bike going 20-something miles an hour.
Yeah,
that'll get you, man.
Yeah, man. I can't even imagine. That's depending on what he hit, too. I mean, he said he broke his shoulder, so...
Yeah, no, that's no fun. The shoulder is no fun. Well, we'll be praying for, obviously, strength and comfort for you there, Jeremy, but also a quick recovery.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing with these types of things is the health issue is just one part of it. Yeah. Then there's the medical bills and the... You know, the hard time, I don't know what he does for work, but there's the work issues. Yeah. There's the family issues, picking stuff up. You got to get somebody to pick up your grocery bags. It's a whole mess. Yeah. So we'll be praying for you, Jeremy, and so will the producers.
Yep, absolutely, man. Sorry to hear about that, but glad you're alive and, you know, at least you can call in or leave a speak pipe. So
we are grateful that you're alive.
Yeah. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do some audio production.
Audio production.
We have one piece of audio. Well, actually, we had another one, but it didn't really quite make it. So we're in contact with that producer to try to figure out what happened there. But we have one from Jonathan F. here.
Jonathan F.
His note says, "Hello, guys. There was a lot more whispering from Brandon recently, especially when detailing about the government IRS army to monitor transactions under $600. The bait and switch of their reasoning is they will need as many agents they can get to monitor their farced monitoring of the newly proclaimed 25% wealthy tax." So here it is.
They want to make sure we don't have enough IRS agents. And those IRS agents we had, they're going to check on the accounts for the super wealthy, which require a lot of accounting. A lot of agents to look at it. They want to get rid of them.
I must have missed that whisper, man. I want to hear the whisper in ISO. He's talking about the wealthy or whatever that are, going to get taxed. That's pretty funny. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed.
We'll add that to the Biden list here so that it's all together now. All right. And again, Ginger B, if you're listening, I think we're trying to figure out what happened with the media that you were trying to send in. So let's do some art.
One art, please.
We only have one piece today to share, and it is from Sir Dove, Knight of Rasbotia. Come on, play, Jingle. Play.
One art piece from Dove.
There we go. He has a note that says... Actually, hold on. Did I not get this right? Oh, I got it. Okay. Piece for this week's Bible artwork. I did an illustration for Matthew 6:28. And why worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I say to you, not even Solomon in all his glory was adorned like one of those. Hope you guys like it. Keep doing what you do, and I'll keep praying for you.
Fun. Yes, thank you very much, Sir Dove. And what we have here is an image. The background is like a photograph looking down the catwalk of a fashion show. You've got people. What?
I said Zoolander.
I don't think it's from Zoolander, but yes, also a show that has catwalks and fashion shows. And you're looking straight down the barrel of this one. You see all the excited fashion enthusiasts on either side, and standing there at the end of the catwalk is a lily of the valley, a lily woman in all
flower
green.
Woman.
Yes, flower woman, all green, all the way up to the neck, where there's a very fashionable pink flare of petals around the neck, and the sort of middle of the flower is her face, looking very proud of her fashion sense. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. Oh, and on the top we've got the text that says, Solomon in all his glory. This is Solomon the flower in all of his glory. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. Very fun.
Not adorned like one of these at the bottom there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. Appreciate it. And that's it for the art. So we do have a couple microfiction to top it off here.
Microfiction. Microfiction.
First one, Runk Smash.
The metallic fingers of the elvish creature let go, and Mike is thrust through the door. But the fear melts away, and he becomes a moth, hatching in a verdant world. He swarms his wings in a circle of light before flying through it on a Walmart wall.
Oh yeah, those extinct... what was it?
Time traveling moths.
The moths,
Jurassic
yeah,
moths.
the Jurassic moths that came through a portal at Walmart or something.
Portal works, folks. Thank you very much, Rank Smash.
Yep. Also, Stephen S. Oh, where's your music? Here we go.
Authorities corner Victor Borgnine, international arms dealer, for questioning after his arrival to Perth. Meanwhile, Western Australia conservationists discover thousands of kangaroo corpses across the outback, all missing their hind legs. Of course, he sends a link here. I'm assuming that has something to do with the kangaroo legs, but perhaps these kangaroos donated their legs to the transhumanist movement. Who knows?
To the Basel Transhuman Group?
Kangaroo Brigade. Yeah, Kangaroo Leg Brigade. Thank you very much, Stefan S.
Thank you, Stefan S. And thank you to all the producers who came in with their talent. We appreciate you.
We do indeed. And if you're a talented person or an artistic person or just someone who wants to play along on the show, you can create something, whatever your art may be it visual or audio or literary or whatever. Head to canarycry.art, canarycry.art, where you can upload that art to the show. We love to see it, folks. Yes, canarycry.art. It's there for you.
Nephilim update.
We're going to wrap the show with a story from WFLA, Florida. This is an NBC outlet. Seaweed Blob, visible from space.
Oh, no.
Takes aim at Florida Gulf Coast.
Takes aim?
Sentient seaweed blob. Tampa, Florida. Marine scientists are tracking a 5,000-mile wide seaweed bloom that is so large it can be seen from space, and it's headed towards Florida's Gulf Coast.
1,000 miles?
That's
wider
I was gonna
than
say, how wide?
the United States.
This thing is humongous.
That's like the width of Russia. That can't possibly be true.
Well,
why am I not seeing any pictures? They say it's visible from space. No pictures?
Well, NASA said so, you know. These sargassum blooms are nothing new, but scientists say this one could be the largest in history. The thick mat of algae drifts between the Atlantic coast of Africa and the Gulf of Mexico, providing habitat for marine life and absorbing carbon dioxide. But it can also wreak havoc when it gets too close to shore. It blocks light from reaching coral and negatively impacts air and water quality as it decomposes. Florida's Gulf Coast is already grappling with an algae bloom amid the busy spring break tourism season. Red tide has caused dead fish to wash ashore in droves, while the risk of respiratory irritation for humans has canceled events. Hyperlinked.
Respiratory?
And driven beachgoers away. Is this our new pandemic? What is this? What respiratory?
What did they call it? Respiratory
irritations. For humans. Yeah, canceled events.
Does that just mean it smells bad? Respiratory irritation. It's stinky seaweed.
Makes you cough. I don't know. With the blanket of sargassum approaching, spanning twice the width of the continental U.S., scientists warn that Florida beaches could soon be inundated with seaweed. Quote, "It's incredible," Brian Lapointe, a research professor at Florida Atlantic University's Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute, told NBC News, quote, "What we're seeing in the satellite imagery does not bode well for a clean beach year." Lapointe, who has studied the blooms for decades, said beaches in the Florida Keys are already being affected. Earlier this week, parts of Mexico were told to prepare for up to 3 feet of sargassum to build up on shore.
3 feet? You've got snow. You've got 8 feet of snow falling on the West Coast. You got 3 feet of seaweed on the East Coast.
Blob.
That's crazy. This is like I think this is camouflage for some sort of creature.
I was gonna say
like a Godzilla type creature, or maybe even UFOs. There's like an UFO, underwater mothership,
a civilization, maybe this is Atlantis.
Yeah,
living underwater, and they just have it. Yeah, it's a 5,000-mile seaweed bloom, which is their cover.
Yeah, it's their cover because they know that the satellites are going to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's crazy. Do they? I mean,
yeah, there's more here.
I think it's funny because among all the like climate catastrophe panic, you would think a gigantic, plant that soaks up all the carbon that we're so afraid of, as a good thing.
It's a climate fighter, climate change fighter.
It's a carbon filter twice the size of the United States. This sounds like a good thing.
Maybe Bill Gates made it. Lapointe, who has studied the blooms for decades, I already said this. Chunks of brown plant matter may be unappealing to look at, but the impact on humans does not end there. Large pieces of sargassum can ensnare boats and other machinery in the water. Quote, even if it's just out in coastal waters, it can block intake valves for things like power plants or desalination plants. Which, by the way, California rejected the plans for a desalination plant that can really help with the water supply here.
Yeah, who needs it?
Yeah. Marinas can get completely inundated and boats can't navigate through. Brian Barnes, an assistant research professor at the University of South Florida's College of Marine Science, told NBC News, quote, it can really threaten critical infrastructure. Joe is right again. Joe, when he wrote the infrastructure bill, I want somebody to look up the Seaweed Blob as a potential threat to the infrastructure.
See if it's in the bill.
Rotting sargassum releases hydrogen sulfide, which can cause respiratory problems for tourists, residents, and anyone who works on the water, Lapointe told NBC News.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we need to lock down. The seaweed is here. Seaweed is coming.
Climate
lockdown. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird, but I can see coastal regions getting really kind of freaked out about some of this.
Sounds like a cover up for the train derailment. The train derailment sent chlorine oxide into the air and it's bugging everybody's lungs and the health effects. Yeah, well, we have a bunch of seaweed and that's hurting our lungs. So just nobody breathe anymore. Wear your mask.
Yeah, so they track it every year. They said 2018 and 2022 had the largest blooms. This year could top last year's record. Quote, historically, as far back as we have records, sargassum has been part of the ecosystem, but the scale now is just so much bigger, Barnes told NBC News. Quote, what we would have thought was a major bloom 5 years ago is no longer even a blip. They're doing something down there, man.
Yeah.
This does not add up.
Later
all of a sudden, we just get all this algae.
Yeah. Later on, it's blaming it on increased fertilizer, making it to the ocean, from our stuff.
Yeah.
Historically, as far back as we have records. So, I just
read that. Yeah.
Just read that one. Yeah. So they're saying all this nitrogen and fertilizer.
Yeah.
Is washing into the rivers washes into the ocean, feeding all of this sargassum seaweed. I think that there's a really good chance that the entire Earth, we've been talking about going to Antarctica as a way to escape, the climate change stuff.
Yeah.
That's how they've been billing it. I think you're going to have to go to Antarctica because it's the only place where the waters are cold enough where the seaweed can't eat you alive.
Yeah.
The climate change is causing ocean temperatures to rise, creating a more ideal environment for the algae to thrive. This algae is not just living, it's thriving, and it's coming to feast on our bones.
Well, the Bible does say that the first beast comes out of the sea. I don't know, maybe John in his vision saw the giant seaweed blob,
The Leviathan. We're just looking at the back hairs of the Leviathan.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This is weird. It's weird. It's creepy.
All right. If you live on the coast, keep an eye out. There's got to be something you can do with this. Much like how Canary Cry culture has embraced repurposing the dryer lint for all sorts of things. We just got to think of something to do to repurpose all this seaweed.
I just thought of something. Actually, this might not work because it depends on a lot of things that I have no idea about. But
okay.
You know what culture eats a lot of seaweed?
The Japanese?
Okay. Maybe, we're dwindling in population.
Japanese.
we need to Just get the Japanese chefs to, make a trek down there to Florida or the Atlantic or whatever.
Ooh.
And,
you know what it probably is? I think you're right. I think it's Bill Gates because this fake meat, protein, alternative proteins.
Yes.
We brought that one story a while back. It may have gotten forgotten amongst all the bug eating, but there was a Japanese protein alternative made of seaweed.
Right.
That they turned into this goo and they put it into shapes.
That's right.
Like octopus and stuff. Remember that one?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe this is a alternative protein Bill Gates project.
Just
gone
Bill
wrong.
Gates wants seaweed backed meat and then just seaweed
And
blob
lost
appears in the
control.
ocean and Bill
Yeah,
Gates
lost
shout.
control. It grew 5,000. They keep talking about how 80% of the world's agriculture land is used for beef production or animal livestock production, and only 20% of the world's calories come from that.
Oh, there's also the Bill Gates startup. Maybe this is what you were talking about. I have the Guardian headline here. Bill Gates. Come on, load. Bill Gates backs new startup aiming to reduce emissions from cow burps. And as part of that, they were putting seaweed, aiming to feed seaweed to cows in order to reduce the planet heating emissions that could come from their burps. So, the methane
weird.
problem. So apparently giving him red seaweed reduces the methane. So, hey, get the cows to eat the seaweed, man.
Go scoop up. They're having all these competitions for children, like build a robot that'll save the planet, or figure out a way to scoop up all the plastic out of the ocean. Just get the kids to invent a robot to go scoop up all the seaweed, just start feeding it to cows. I don't see what the big deal is here. I think we're going to be fine. As long as it's not the actual Leviathan camouflaging itself from satellite view, or the Chinese, you never know. Could just be the Chinese.
Chinese spy seaweed.
Yeah, it's Chinese spy seaweed. We never set our radar to follow slow-moving seaweed
5,000 mile wide seaweed blooms. It just wasn't
That's
on
how
our
the
radar.
Chinese have been spying on us this whole time. That's probably it.
I love
think
this
we
line.
figured it out.
Research has previously found that adding seaweed to cow feed can reduce methane formation in their guts by more than 80%.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. That's maybe this is the Israelites in the Old Testament had manna from heaven. Maybe this is the climate change.
Have you fed your baby seaweed yet?
Of course. Are you crazy? I'm a Japanese man. Of course. Well, you don't eat seaweed? You don't feed your emus seaweed?
I would feed the bunnies seaweed. They'd probably love it.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I'm far away from seaweed, though. I'm not a fan of the seaweed.
Come on, man.
All right, but we're going off topic. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. I want to thank our executive producers. They really saved us today. Without the execs, we would be shaking in our boots. So thank you to executive producer Sir Captain Redbeard, Pirate King of the D-Moochers, executive producer Robert M., executive producer Sir Martin K. Out of the wrong timeline. You guys saved our butts. And, of course, all of the rest of our producers and the artists. There's some value for value participants who come in. They help us out with their time doing essential work. They are the Canary Cry essential workers. And I want to thank them now, starting with the Clippies.
Flippy.
Clipping all those videos. Thanks.
That's right. They run the Canary Cry Clips channel over on YouTube and Odyssey. Go make sure to subscribe to that channel and drop them a line. Thanks to Emsworth, Faye Liverin, Jones, and Laura for all putting in the work to make sure that happens. Clipping the videos, managing the channel. It's a whole thing, and we're very grateful.
Yep.
And thank you to our timestampers.
Timestamp, it's hard work. Timestamp.
That's right. The timestamps, they go into so much of our back-end processes. We're extraordinarily grateful to our very talented and good-looking producers who timestamp every show. We are currently looking for volunteers to help out. Don't worry, it's not an all-week thing. But if you watch one of the shows live per week, this would really help out. We need one more team member over there at the Timestampers. Send us an email at canarycryradio@gmail.com. And thank you to Jade Bouncerson for doing the timestamps for episode 600.
Yep, thank you very much.
Social media.
Social media consultant.
Thanks so much.
Social media, follow us.
Dame Miss G, the OV, and the Deep Rivers, making sure the art gets up on the social media. Thank you very much, Dame Miss G.
Yep.
And CanaryCryMeetups.com.
Canary Cry Meetups.
Yeah, go check it out. There's meetups going on, meetups gone. We had a couple meetups go on. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah, we did have
the
something.
File? Okay. Do you have the file from the Alaska meetup? Did you download it?
I don't think I saw the one from. Oh, here it is. Yep. From Luke.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Okay. Yes, it's from Luke. Luke sent a thing. This was for the Alaska meetup on the 11th, which there was a little bit of a worry here, but we got a note. And the note reads, this is from Nomen Prunte, Basilisk and Gonzilla, since I didn't receive emails from any Alaskanaries.
Ooh, I like that.
Not a real job. I expanded my invite to include some friends, counting myself and the kids showed up. We had 13 people there, including one friend who introduced me to Revelations Radio Network in 2016. Oh, yeah, OG. I put out placemats with Dove's meetup art for everyone and printed stories from one of last week's shows, taped these under the table for people to find. Naturally, people had questions, and so we had some opportunities to talk about the show. I believe that we have at least one new convert. Hey. There we go. The kids got to color all over the artwork by Allie and Dove and were given googly eyes and sent off to vandalize the town. This is what I'm talking about. This sounds fun. I want to go here. Good conversations were had, connections were made, kingdom work was done. I didn't take a picture of us, but after threatening everyone with a broken spork, they grudgingly agreed to record one of the show's salutations. Enjoy. Thank you, Basil Gons and producers, for creating the template to follow. Nomen Prunte. P.S. Can't wait to hear about the Missouri and Germany meetups. Also curious to know if there are canaries in Alaska outside the South Central area. I don't know anything about Alaska. I know that there are multiple. I've seen just cruising around the canarycry.community and the Discord channel and everywhere. There are multiple Alaskan canaries around. So I don't know what it takes to meet up with each other. Alaska is a big place, but there should be a way to find each other through the various channels. And we got a fun a little audio thing here. You want to play it?
Think outside the cage.
Whee!
Woo!
Very
Awesome.
fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nomen Prunte. Sounds like you put a lot of great work into that.
Yeah,
We appreciate
that. Yeah, that's really cool.
And if any of the people who are at that meetup are listening, good job. Welcome to the family.
Yep. Let's
see. I heard something about the Munich. Okay, somebody told me München.
München is Munich.
Is Munich.
Yeah, thank you.
That
today.
I understand. I don't know why it's not. I don't know why. I don't know a lot of things. Got a note. The Germany meetup had a little whoopsie daisy. Something didn't happen there.
Okay.
Because of, hold on, I'm just scanning to see if this is public or not. They are doing another one. They're doing another one next month. We'll have the info later.
Okay.
Yes, here we go. Okay, let's hit the producers real quick.
Okay.
Producers, assemble!
Okay. So Mr. Jag here had sent us a note Yeah, had some weird stuff go on that made it so the Germany meetup couldn't happen. If possible, run a prayer request jingle for me as prior to the last meetup. And basically, since then, I have some spiritual warfare kind of stuff going on for real. That is why my feedback. Okay, so we got some for real spiritual warfare stuff going on with Mr. Jag. So producers out there, keep Mr. Jag in your prayers. Power and strength to fight those battles. We know that can take many forms, but we got to make sure that all the Canarians there know that they're supported morally and spiritually. And, of course, we know who has victory over all those sorts of things. So sorry to hear about that, Mr. Jag. But the producers are on it.
Yep, absolutely. Did we hear anything?
This here. I have the impression now that every time I try to get involved with Canary Cry, I have some unusual event stopping me.
Hey, welcome to the struggle, man.
Yeah, welcome to our daily lives.
Yeah.
That in itself makes the show more valuable for me. Yeah, so some real spiritual warfare stuff going on over there. We're praying for you, Mr. Jag.
Yep, for sure. So, did we not get a report from the Missouri meetup yet? I didn't see anything.
Who hosted that one? Do you know off the top of your head?
I forget the individual's name.
Do you have
meetups? joyfulnoise19@gmail.com. So there's that.
Okay. I did not see anything from them.
Okay.
So Joyful Noise, if you're out there, we get it. It's the next day. You're still recovering, but send us a report. Let us know how it went. Missouri we've got a nice bunch of Canaries over there in Missouri. So
cool.
Hopefully it went good.
Yeah. Yep. Good to know.
So there you go. A lot of meetups going on.
Oh, by the way,
there's even more.
I was going to say, April 29th, St. Augustine,
by the
Florida.
Way, the thing that I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to mention.
St. Augustine, Florida.
Look for the blob.
No. This is called the Overtalk. This is the Overtalk menu.
All right.
What'd you say?
I was going to say
look for the blob.
The people in Florida they could do a beach meetup and look for the seaweed blob.
Yes, the Canary Cry seaweed buffet. We've got Houston, May 13th, Glen Rose, Texas, May 27th, 28th, September. We got Eastern North Carolina. Go to canarycrymeetups.com. See if there's a meetup near you. And if there's not, put one on yourself. Just pick a time, pick a place. Let us know about it. There's a long history of Canary Cry meetups. There's lots of inspiration, activities, missions to accomplish. Do a barn raising. It's all great. Wow, I'm scrolling through the list of past meetups. There have been so many.
Oh yeah, we've had a ton.
This is great. Okay, more meetups. Let us know, folks. Ratings, reviews.
This is fun!
Let's invite some dudes over in fellowship tonight.
Ratings and reviews help us out more than we could possibly communicate to you. If you're on Apple Podcasts, most of you are, take a second, leave a rating and a review. It's incredibly helpful to us. And if you don't, guns will be dunked in a vat of seaweed mixed with pudding. That
doesn't sound too bad.
That is the threat. The threat has.
You got to make the threat something undesirable.
Go leave us. His skin will be so soft and supple after that, and have a faint chocolatey smell.
Already does.
Leave us ratings and reviews, please. It'd be really nice if you did that. Thanks, Jam, for the links. Thank you to Maureen M. for an article over at canarycry.report. If you want to send us articles, go to canarycry.report. That makes it way easier to get on the show. Thank you to Kenny T.
Yes, Kenny T.
Also telling us the difference between Munich and München, which is no difference. Let's see. That's it. Thank you to you too. And other than that, thank you to Clank for the assistance. And share the show, folks. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your giant 5,000-mile wide seaweed monsters. Not a lot of people are doing podcasts specifically for seaweed monsters, and it's about time that seaweed monsters get the recognition they deserve. So
it's the seaweed blob for you.
Everyone over
terminology.
In Florida, if everyone takes their iPhone or their AirPods and starts playing a Canary Cry News Talk episode and hurls their device into the ocean, perhaps the seaweed monster will find it in their hearts to have mercy on Florida, and all of those jet boats running drugs and immigrants across the Gulf of Mexico will change their minds. I could see how maybe it's a national defense blob of seaweed.
Who made the blob?
Maybe it is. It's like a DARPA-funded seaweed defense blob. It's kind of like the Iron Dome, but for water
Maritime
and
dome.
Florida.
Maybe it's DeSantis' grand plan.
Throw the podcast into the ocean, folks. That's what I'm telling you to do. It's good. It'll help the show somehow. And other than that, if you need any more instructions, here's what you do. You just walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Ask Noah. Gonson, he got any last words, Gonson? You know, some days you feel like a pro, you know, and other days you don't.
Today,
those other days,
definitely one of those days where
other days.
Actually, most days I feel like I don't have any days where I feel like a pro.
Well,
CEO of Pfizer announces acquisition of cancer treatment biotech Seagen for $43 billion.
Saw that.
Borla's going to cure cancer, guys. Don't worry. Albert Borla.
Oh, don't worry. I'm not worried.
Oh, and Jim Cramer urges investors to sell Bitcoin too. So that should tell you, not financial advice, but
that means it's time to buy
time
Bitcoin.
To buy.
That's funny you mentioned that. I was just looking at the inverse Jim Cramer account on Twitter.
It's hilarious.
Documents that literally everything Jim Cramer says, you do the opposite.
Didn't he say something about the Silicon Valley Bank not too long ago?
Yes. Yeah, he said he had SVB as like one of his most promising picks for 2023. Yeah. I'm going to bring that back up. I just started following inverted. I think it's inverted Jim Cramer.
That's hilarious.
Well, that would be good. That would be good if Bitcoin could help us out a little bit.
Self-custody, folks.
Self-custody. Don't keep it in the end.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
We will hunt you down and make you pay.
Don't even get me started on bidets, man.
Toilets!
Bidets, man.
Toilets!
Bidets, man.
Toilets!
I'm telling you, you were living the life, man. Bidets, man.
Don't give up, Roger. Don't sleep at the juniper tree. The journey's too great. The angel of the Lord has food indeed. Yeah, yeah. In 2 Kings
stupid. I'm not stupid. And I had these terrible headaches, diagnosed with having anyway, they had to take the top of my head on a couple times, see if I had a brain. I'm not stupid. Come in and do things that I don't think you'll learn in medical school, nursing school. She'd whisper in my ear. I couldn't understand her. She'd whisper, she'd lean down. She'd actually breathe on me to make sure that there was a connection, human connection. I'm not stupid.
Everybody, and that's the end. And everyone says, "Oh, that was fun."
Bye. I'm out of here. Bye.
CanaryCryRadio.com/support.